Tonight on Piers Morgan Uncensored, one of the most infamous men in the world, Andrew Tate's misogynistic tirades have been viewed billions of times online. He's now been effectively banned, though, from the internet. He doesn't think that's fair. Tonight, I'm going to try and work out if it is.
I feel like it's a little bit, by the way, it's a little bit, you know, we're stacking the deck a little bit whenever you literally say that it's misogynistic. Because, like, if you're going to give the guy an interview and you're going to, you know, like, appear to try to get his side of things, starting it off with saying it is misogynistic versus critics are saying it's misogynistic, these are two different things. And the thing is, like, this is what I said before, right? Is that Andrew Tate should have never fucking expected to get a fair shake out of Piers Morgan, all right? And in my opinion, if he had expected that, that was a huge fucking mistake. Massive mistake.
From London, this is Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yep.
Well, good evening from London and welcome to a special edition of Piers Morgan
Bad
Uncensored.
decision-making.
Andrew
Yes.
Tate, one-on-one.
Here we go.
He's the most famous man you probably never heard of, with billions of views online. At one point this year, more people were searching Google for Andrew Tate than Donald Trump or Kim Kardashian.
Wow.
A former professional kickboxer, he was kicked off Big Brother in 2016 after a video emerged of him striking a woman, in what they now both claim was a consensual sex game. He's since made millions as a pornographer and casino owner in Romania, but it's his online videos that have made him notorious across the world, posing as a playboy with fast cars, cigars, weapons and cash. He rants about his often scandalous views on women.
Or instruct a female to provide sustenance. Cook.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes.
Tells young men they can get as rich as him by paying for his digital life lessons.
Oh, man.
I have 100 business tips I'm going to teach you, which will allow you to make your own money instantly.
But amid a global
there it is.
media backlash, the net has closed on Andrew Tate. While millions still share his videos, he's effectively banned from the web.
Yeah.
Booted off Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To his fans, he's a misunderstood satirist and the victim of big tech censorship.
I don't think that he's a satirist. I mean, really, is this something I've never really heard him say that what he says is satire? I think that everybody kind of assumes that, like, yeah, you play things up a little bit for the camera. But I feel like he's never really said that what he was saying is satire. Because if it's satire, it means that he doesn't mean it.
To many others, he's a malicious misogynist. Tonight, I'll try and get to the truth.
All right, here we go.
Well, some of the opinions Andrew Tate shares in his videos are undeniably deeply
Contains moderately strong language. Yeah, I fucking bet.
offensive. We're going to show you some of them on this show. I think you should see them for yourself, not simply hear what he says about them or what other people say about them. Tens of millions of people across the world follow Andrew Tate, and with a big following comes a big responsibility, as well as a public interest in holding his views to account. If outrageous opinions are read aloud, they can be challenged and exposed for what they are. If they're silenced, the person holding these views can become a martyr. So that's why I invited Andrew Tate to come here tonight, and he joins me now live. So, Andrew, well, welcome, first of all. You come all the way from Romania to do this interview.
Correct.
What do you hope to achieve from this interview? Why are you here?
It'd be interesting to have a conversation with you. You've certainly been the subject of your own divided opinions in the world. There's a lot of people.
People fucking hate Piers Morgan. They hate this guy. Like, I remember he had a show on CNN. Everybody fucking hated him. Because he's on CNN telling Americans they need to put away their fucking guns. And then it's like, well, who the fuck are you? You don't even live here. So yeah, there's a lot of people that don't like Piers Morgan.
Would say some of the things you say are perhaps dangerous or toxic. So I thought you'd be a good person to speak to about this subject.
I didn't know much about you before this year, and then I suddenly became very aware of you, as the world did, because, as I said earlier, you were the #1 subject searched on Google ahead of Donald Trump. I didn't think it was even possible. Why did you get suddenly so popular stroke infamous, do you think?
I exploded. I certainly didn't do that with magic. I've been on the internet for a very long time. I think in the world we live in...
I remember seeing Andrew Tate on Twitter. That's how long I've known about this guy. Yeah, it was that was a long time ago, man. Like, he got banned a while ago.
And now, as the other side, the other side, the people who disagree with me, as they get more and more tyrannical in their censorships and their hate mobs, etc., as standard masculine practices are deemed toxic.
We'll see about that. I think, you know, the girls being his property, if this is a standard masculine practice, thank God it's toxic. Yeah, no, I don't. There are other ones that we'll see what happens, but yes, standard masculine practices. We'll see what those really are.
Put a magic spell on everybody. I managed to accumulate a large amount of affinity with the male populace across the Western world because I'm simply saying things that many men believe, think, and feel.
The problem I would say is I want to play you just
that is a very good point. That people that dislike Andrew Tate do have to come to the reality and come to Jesus about the fact that there are a lot of people that agree with him. And I know this might be very upsetting. Trust me, whenever I criticize him, I get to read all the comments of all the fucking people that agree with him. But yes, there are millions and millions and millions of guys that agree with Andrew Tate.
Off the top, this is from Joe Rogan. He's somebody I absolutely love.
Sure.
And I think it explains to me what I presume my issue with you is going to be, right?
Correct.
And you have absolutely got the right to try and persuade me otherwise.
Okay,
sure.
But Joe Rogan said this about you.
My 12-year-old and my 14-year-old asked me about Andrew Tate. And my 14-year-old asked me, I said he's a legit world champion kickboxer. I go, I like him a lot. Why do you like him? And I was asking him. And they said he says a lot of funny stuff on Twitter and TikTok. He f***ed up with the misogynist stuff. Because if he didn't do that, if he just did the pro-male stuff.
I would agree with that. I actually would. Before I said, I would actually agree with that. I think that, like, you take women out of the equation, and Andrew Tate's not that bad of a guy. Yeah, if there were no women in the world, people's problems with Andrew Tate would get way, way lower.
So I thought that was interesting because when I've gone over everything that's been at the centre of the debate about Andrew Tate, I come down with Joe Rogan in the sense that there's a lot of stuff you say I agree with. You know, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. It's not easy, actually, being a young male in the modern world.
I agree with that.
And I think a lot of the things that you say about that can resonate with them. The problem comes with the, I don't know, 10, 20% or whatever of your output, which on the face of it appears to be blatant misogyny. And when you couple that with your massive influence and huge reach, that is why the social media companies have decided to effectively cancel you. I don't believe in cancellation. I don't believe in censorship particularly. That's why I've invited you to come on the show. But I do think...
I will say, since this is a video probably a lot of people might watch, is that my opinion on this is a long video, and I'll just say this at the beginning. My opinion on censorship on social media is that you should only be removed off social media if you use social media to break the law. So, like, if you're trying to solicit people to do things that are illegal or, you know, harassing people illegally or something like that, those are the times that I think you should get kicked off social media. Having stupid opinions, I don't really think should get you kicked off social media. I think that it does turn people like Andrew Tate into martyrs. It is effective. Censorship is effective in some ways, but I think that also there's a lot of people that don't want to confront the reality of why a lot of people like Andrew Tate.
A lot of the things you've said are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appear to be blatantly misogynistic.
Which I think that was a good thing for him to say, is that Piers Morgan so far, you know, he's actually been approaching this interview pretty well. Like, yeah, this has been pretty good.
I understand that on the face of some of the long format content I've made, if you're going to take a few seconds out of hours, chop it up, put it all over social media, accompanied with my massive fame, then things can absolutely not be taken out of context. I do not hate women in any regard. I have no negative relationship with women. No women have come forward saying I've hurt them. I have no criminal record for hurting women.
Wasn't there a second woman that came forward that said that she was abused by Andrew Tate besides the first one that he said they had some sex play thing? Yeah, I think there was a second one, wasn't it? No? Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. That's why I'm not sure. With no evidence. Oh, okay. Then, yeah, it's hard to say. But I do think that, like, it's very much a cop-out to say that what he was saying at face value was misogynist. I think that there are some things that, like, you can't take certain things out of context. Like, you can take a 5-second clip of some things that somebody says, and that 5-second clip is bad enough to judge the entire rest of it.
No way I can be seen as the face or the devil in regards to how men treat women on the planet. I'm absolutely and utterly the opposite. I believe in protecting and providing. I've been misunderstood. There's been large contingents of people who have...
Hopefully we will clear up the misunderstanding here.
Tried very hard to purport lies about me. And the truth of the matter is, I've been producing content for a very long time. Hours and hours of videos been cut down to 2 or 3 seconds of clip. Those clips have gone viral and people misunderstand me.
But I think you've used this phrase and be taken out of context, and I'm not sure that is correct.
That's
in the sense that
100%.
it still comes out of your mouth. Some of the things
completely.
Some of the things you've said, I just think are blatantly.
Well, let's do them. Let's hear them.
Go down the list.
Sure,
yes,
right?
Please.
So you said this about Me Too / rape. This is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania. In Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. You go to the police and say, he raped me back in 1988. They'll say, well, you should have done something about it back then.
Yeah, so the point I was making was obviously at the height of the Me Too scandal, and also if we look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, there's been a lot of high-profile cases where men have been accused of things they did not do without evidence, and their lives have been completely and utterly destroyed.
Right.
When I say...
This is true. This is true. That there are guys that get falsely accused of something and it completely fucks up their life. The reality is that even though Amber Heard lost in court, we're still not going to get another Jack Sparrow. It 100% happens. The same thing happened to Pro Jared, and there are some other ones that there are minimal to little evidence about. But it's also important to keep in mind that these instances are the vast minority. I would say probably I've read studies about this, but it's very hard to prove a negative. So it's hard to judge the validity of it, of like how often this happens. My understanding is like false accusations are like 2%. They are a very, very, very minimal thing, because if you really go back and you think about how many people in the Twitch community got Me Too'd, think about how many of them were legit. The overwhelming majority. So while guys can have this happen, it is certainly not the majority of times. Not 2%. It's hard to say. The question was about statute of limitations.
These things, people sit and say that, oh, he hates women. I don't hate women. I think rape is disgusting. I would take a stronger stance on rape than the British government. I think these people should face the death penalty. But to sit and say that women without evidence can go forward and just make up accusations against men, even though they've been repeatedly proven to destroy men's lives at will, is absolutely and utterly
What about
asinine.
a woman who was raped back in 1988 and goes to the police?
Then the man should face absolute and complete justice.
But do you understand that when that clip...
So he's talking about like not having evidence. Like not necessarily the year apparently. So no, somebody said it's statutes of limitation. It's clearly not. It is clearly not statute of limitations, because you literally just said that, you know, that the person should agree. Yeah, I mean, sure.
Appears on TikTok as a clip, and all right.
As a clip, completely.
Okay, but it's still something that came out of your mouth. Do you accept that when that appears on TikTok, a lot of young, maybe not as smart as you, young men, right? Impressionable, teenagers, will read that and go, what's he saying here? Is he saying that rape doesn't exist?
No, I completely. I'm not going to sit here as a professional and say that I can't be taken out of context. What I will say is that one small sentence you've taken was from a 1-hour video where I explained that, of course, rape is disgusting. Of course, everybody should be punished for their crimes regardless of when they happen. But people are not perfect, male and female. And if you give women the opportunity to destroy men's lives without evidence, there's going to be a contingent of women who will do that. I'm trying to make a balanced and nuanced argument in a world where people have no attention span. They're going to take a few seconds.
Is that really an unpopular opinion? I feel like most people have that opinion. And I think the Johnny Depp trial and the overwhelming support of Johnny Depp proved that. I feel like pretty much everybody agrees with this, that nobody wants to have, you know, some woman that goes out and just accuses somebody of something, ruins their life with no evidence. I would assume that this is the majority opinion, that that's a very bad thing.
Put it online, decide someone's good or bad, not be interested in the longer format video.
Well, what I'm saying, like, the reason why I'm making this point is that I think Andrew Tate with this problem is to a degree, and the problem is that It's to a degree jousting at windmills. It's to a degree arguing against something that's not really there. But the problem is that that's not entirely true, because there are a lot of companies that are just scandal adverse and risk adverse. And so as soon as somebody gets involved with a scandal or a risk, the company doesn't care about the person or about what's true. The company only cares about keeping their brand image clean. And in doing so, they remove ties with that person regardless of the guilt or not. So I don't think this is actually a societal thing. I think it's more or less the way that companies respond to controversies, much less than the way the population does.
And here I am. No, I'm certainly a person who takes personal responsibility. That's who I am as a person. But we live in a world now with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long. There's no content.
Do you think women are the property of men?
No. The point I was making.
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that when a man marries a woman, the woman's father walks her down the aisle, and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible.
Well, I think that is fucking hard cap. Like, I've seen him talk about the exact same thing with, like, OnlyFans, etc. Like, this has been a point that he's brought up multiple times without the context of religion as well. I'm not buying this one.
I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most
religious
religious
country
in the world.
So you do think that the woman becomes the men?
I think she takes his last name.
I mean, let's watch the clip that you said about
very
so that we can get it in context.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle to marry the groom, the father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
Absolutely.
But I've been married twice, as it turns out, and on both.
Well, it's like if I tell you guys in chat that I'm doing a giveaway for the moon, and I give somebody the moon, that doesn't mean that you own the moon. Because I never owned the moon, and you can't own a person just the same as you can't own the moon. I'm not a fan of this. Yeah, I think this is very weird. The owning people and then being their property. It doesn't. I'll take. Wait a second. So what's the problem with what I'm saying here? The implication is that the father owns the girl, which is not true. And then the other implication that's built off of that is that the husband owns the girl. Neither of these things are true. And he's using one thing that's not true to basically rationalize a second thing that is also not true. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with what I'm saying. What's this here? It's bigger and older issue. Women are supposed to take the last name of their husband in marriage. Yeah, I owns a responsibility. Nobody talks about ownership. Listen, you want to take responsibility for somebody. I think that, yes, you can very easily say that somebody is responsible. But something being your property and owning something does imply a certain level of responsibility. But being responsible for something and focusing on the ownership element is very misleading.
Occasions, I didn't believe that the woman was being handed to me as chattel, as property.
Perhaps the way the reason I'm asked that question repeatedly, and I'm asked.
I wonder why.
So would you rephrase what you said there?
Now, that's an interesting point about phrasing. The way I would say things before I was famous, I have to take personal responsibility and accept that if I make a video that 500 people see and 1% of them misunderstand it, that's not a problem. If I make a video that 5 million people see and 1% of them understand.
So specifically on that point, I think my sister is her husband's property.
She took his last name. She married him. She wanted to join his family. She has said it herself.
Right. So she's
still.
I don't think joining his family is a very good assessment of it, and I think that's also not a very good historical assessment of it. I think joining of families, it's not a one-sided way. Like if you look at like why marriages happened a lot in like the Middle Ages, they happened for political reasons. So it's not like this is you're giving the girl to this family and that's it. It's also a mutual thing between both families.
A sovereign individual. She's absolutely not.
But property means that the husband owns your sister.
Listen, my friend, if we want to argue about this, you need to go back to the Bible, to the Quran. You need to argue with religious.
No, I'm not talking about anything in the Bible or Quran.
But that's what it says.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I think that if a woman marries a man and she decides to take his last name, that they have different roles and responsibilities within that marriage, and I believe that.
That's not the question.
I don't agree with that. I don't like the idea that a man and a woman have different responsibilities inside of a relationship, and that is defined de facto by there being a marriage. I think that's very reductive, and it's also like it's unfair to other people because you get to tell them what they can do. Yeah, I don't agree with that. He's just doubling down. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You're just denying what marriage is then? Well, no, I'm not. How could I be denying what marriage is? So it's very simple. There are many times where the woman is the breadwinner in the family and she makes all the money and the guy is a stay-at-home dad. That's a lucky guy. This happens. So I think that to the extent that that can happen, and I don't want to live in a world where that's not possible, because I think that telling people what they have to do, in general, this is just my own personal outlook on the world, is that I think that people should have complete personal freedom to the extent that they don't hurt other people or they don't become a massive draw on society. So I actually disagree with this because it's predicated on the assumption that a man and a woman's relationship in a marriage has to be one thing. I don't like that. I don't think that's fair.
His hand, I believe the father. The father hands are.
Don't behave like a politician.
The father hands her to the man.
Right, but don't be a politician because I think.
Sorry, somebody. I wanted to make one more comment about this. Is it somebody said that it was it's an uncommon thing for the woman to be the breadwinner? You're definitely right, but I don't think that it's uncommon for both people to have a job. And this is just the reality now, is that, you know, if you want to have a family, unless you've got a really great job as a guy, you know, the odds are your wife is going to have to make some money too. So in most cases, I would say with, like, you know, many families, especially like middle class and working class, both parents actually work. It's not like, oh, the dad's providing and the woman just stays home all day.
The father hands her.
Don't behave like a politician.
The father hands her to the man.
Right, but don't be a politician, because I think you're a straight talker,
Sure.
right? You keep telling me you're a straight talker. I think my sister is her husband's property. Do you regret saying it like that?
I understand that with my newfound fame, perhaps it could be phrased differently. However, I still believe that a woman is given to the man in marriage. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but not as property.
He's talking around the word property. I don't like this. This is annoying. He's talking around the word property so he doesn't have to explicitly say it because he knows it's an indefensible point. And then he originally used the religion argument, and now Piers is asking him his personal opinions, and so we'll see where this goes.
No, the property is the word that other people use when they ask me the question.
But as an equal partner in a loving union, that's what marriage actually means. It doesn't mean that when you get married, the woman is given to you as a bit of chattel.
Agreed.
So why say it?
But that's the way that people ask me the question. People say to me, they ask the question.
Hang on, you can't blame people for asking you questions. Surely, if you want to be accountable for what you've said, you've got to own your responses.
I mean, it's so dumb. Like, of him to say that, that's so dumb. Somebody asked me the question of, like, what was the question that caused you to say women are property? That is dumb.
Blame the question?
I own the response.
Like me asking you a question now and you say something and then say, well, actually, I blame you for asking.
I understand, Piers. Yeah. Piers, I understand. I believe the woman is given to the man. I believe she's given away by the father. I believe she belongs to the man.
So fundamentally, all right. So fundamentally, you do believe that
belongs is also, like, you can say people belong together. You know what I mean? Like, oh, somebody belongs together, or oh, I belong in this job, etc. I think that, again, this is we're playing very delicate games with language here. And in this context, belong is synonymous with property, but it is clearly a much more, much more blasé term, right? It's not as defined and it's not as aggressive. So he's clearly trying to talk around it. I don't know why.
The woman becomes a man's property.
I believe she belongs to the man in marriage. Correct.
Right. Oh, you see, that to me is misogyny.
And you're entitled to your opinion.
Right. But do you not understand why people think it is misogyny?
Well, I don't know. I feel like that's fucking, like, would you say that if you, whenever you get married, if you own your wife, I don't know, I would say that's pretty much misogyny. Like, I'm not the kind of guy to color my hair purple and say that because the WNBA doesn't get paid as much as the NBA, that it's because of misogyny. I'm not gonna fucking say that, all right? That's not me. But there is a line, and I feel like we've crossed it whenever you say that women are your property whenever you marry them.
I understand why some people can be very offended by what I say. What they do is they take a point like that and they ignore all the other points I make the other way around.
Yeah, but that's why
I find that to be such a bad argument. You can't make, and it is, listen, it's the same old fucking thing. I said, you build 100 bridges and you suck one dick, you're not a bridge builder, you're a dick sucker. You can't fucking go and say some crazy ass shit and then be like, yeah, but all the rest of the time. It's like, imagine if you're on stream and it's a 12-hour stream, and you get up and you just take your dick out, you do a couple helicopters, and you sit back down and you queue another game of Overwatch. And then Twitch bans you, and you're like, man, I was streaming for 12 hours, and I've been doing this for a month, and I'm gonna get banned just because of 6 seconds of helicopter dick? I mean, like, really, let's put this into context here. You see what I mean? I think this is a very bad argument. Be contextual and little in your argument. Don't say, yeah, they're your property. Exactly. What if he, what if he owns her and she owns him too? Then that should be explained, right? I mean, I don't think that it's fair to, I don't think that it's fair to assume that. Let me just say that. Yeah. I don't think that's what he means by property. Okay. I don't know if this is, yeah, this is not going both ways.
Repeatedly asked you about that line to see if you've changed your position, but the reality is you haven't.
It's not about changing positions. I'm a full-grown adult, and I stick by the things I say, and I'm responsible.
Oh, by the way, he's completely entitled to this opinion. I don't think you should go to jail for thinking women should be property whenever you get married to them. I think it's dumb, but he's entitled to this opinion. I'm not saying he shouldn't be allowed to think this. He should be able to think whatever he wants.
For them,
which, by the way, is fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what you did say at the start of this little exchange, you said, you know, I wouldn't maybe say things the same way now that I did before I was famous. Yeah. And yet, actually, you've doubled down and said exactly the same thing.
On certain points.
So that is what you believe. That's my point.
Yes.
I'm trying to work out, look,
yes.
I don't know you. We've just met, right?
I find that Piers trying to, like, I can see why Piers is trying to find the hypocrisy or the double standard of what he originally said. But, I mean, clearly this is a 1-hour video and there are going to be a lot of things to go through. So maybe this is just not one of the things that he would restate. We'll see if the other things that he would restate instead. Here we go.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out who Andrew Tate is and what you actually believe. I don't want to twist anything at all.
Then let me make it very, very clear to the camera. I believe a woman is given to the man in marriage. I believe that. I also believe a man has a duty to protect and provide for her. I believe a man should lay down his life if something happens or his wife's life is threatened. I believe that women and children first are on the lifeboats.
But men,
I believe that men.
But a man doesn't own a woman.
It's not. No. It's okay.
Unless they literally buy them as a slave.
Well, obviously, we're not talking about that. We're talking about religious, biblical marriage. We're talking about something else.
I find that to also be there is very, very clearly secular marriage. And I feel like unless you are prefacing everything and saying that, like, I've never seen any instance of him saying it's only, oh, this is only religious marriage. This is only that. And also, even if it is religious marriage, I don't think that makes it beyond criticism. I think every religion is more than open to criticism, and I think every religion almost all deserves it.
Yeah, but I'm a Christian. I don't believe that I own my wife.
Do you believe your wife was given away to you when she took your last name?
I believe that there is a process where a father traditionally walks his daughter down the aisle and hands his daughter to this man, and they stand there and become a union of two loving people in a partnership. No, there's no ownership involved.
I didn't say
ownership. He's not selling her.
What do you mean owner? What do you mean you didn't say ownership? So whenever you have property, what do you have over that property? I would say ownership. We're playing a lot of it's like how can somebody be given to something if you don't own it? This is what, oh, are we gonna, can I give away the moon? No, I can't, because I don't own the moon. This is mental, yeah. He's doing like semantic and mental gymnastics for this. It's very annoying.
Father of the bride isn't selling his daughter.
No, absolutely.
That's what property means.
She becomes a member of your family.
Is it?
I think we're arguing over semantics.
We're not, though, because
I think that I feel like we are arguing over semantics, and the person who started that argument over semantics is Andrew Tate. It's not Piers Morgan. It's Piers Morgan is saying, hey, you said this. And he's like, well, that's not really what I meant. I'm going to use another word now. Yeah, we are arguing over semantics because that's beneficial for him because he knows it's an indefensible position.
Fundamentally, I don't believe a man owns a woman. You do.
Well, I don't think a man owns any sovereign individual. I don't think we live in the world of slavery. I don't own any men or any woman.
Right.
Nobody owns anybody.
When you use phrases like property, that's what you imply.
I understand.
And so my point...
I mean, yes, obviously, property implies ownership. I swear to fucking God, if I have some Andrew Tate superfan in the fucking comments of this video that's going to say, no, it's not no, you don't have ownership over property, like, that's not really what he meant, like, I'm going to go fucking insane.
Again, you're a smart guy, right?
Correct,
There's no denying that. You're smart, you're a good talker. I've seen a lot of the stuff. But when what I don't think you quite fully understand.
No, I understand very well.
When young, impressionable people who are not as smart see things like, I think my sister is her husband's property, yes, and you've just reaffirmed that that belief.
I think that even after even after everything you said, it's still bad.
They think that they have the right to own women.
I understand that very well,
yes.
Piers.
That's why people think you're a misogynist.
Completely. Yes. I understand all of this very well, which is why when you're saying I was backtracking, I'm not.
Do you have any regret, though, over the way you phrased this stuff?
Well, this is the point I was trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is when I was not nearly as famous and I was making long format content, I was not sitting there anticipating I'd become the most Googled man on the planet and that a few seconds could be taken out of context.
This is fair. I will defend Andrew Tate here. I think as another person who has been making content on the internet, probably as long as he has, maybe longer, maybe not, I don't know. But both of us have made content a long time. And if you go back and you watch my old content, there's a lot of things that don't sound good in my old content. Abso-fucking-lutely. And it's like, yeah, you do something 10 years ago and, you know, society was different, everything was different, etc. And then it comes back and it's like now in the new context, it sounds bad. You know, yeah, of course. Sure. Like, I mean, of course this kind of stuff happens. But he doubles down. Yes, but he's double downing on it. I've never said that women are property, though. Actually, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't know. I have to go back and watch, but I'm pretty sure I didn't.
It's not my anticipation.
No, but it's still what you believe. It's what you believe now. So what's the difference?
It's not about. It's not. You're asking me. You're saying that young people who are impressionable.
If you said to me, look, Piers, honestly, I've had time to think about this, and I wish I hadn't said it. I don't believe that. That's one thing. Actually, you've said the opposite. You said, actually, that's what I think. Yeah.
I think that when
it doesn't really matter whether you recorded it when you're famous or not famous. It's what you actually believe, right?
That's actually a very good point, and I'm glad that Piers was able to pick that apart, because it's very easy to say that, oh, well, I wasn't saying this. Like, Andrew Tate made an argument that is very true, that yes, of course, you know, he wasn't thinking about being perceived this way, but whenever he doubles down and he says, well, yeah, but I still agree with it, though, it kind of invalidates that whole argument.
I believe that a man has a duty to protect and provide for a woman. Mm-hmm. I believe that a woman's father gives her away to the man. That's what I believe, and that's in my marriage. That's the circumstance I'm going to live under. If people want to live in a different scenario, that's completely theirs. Their prerogative.
You went on to say.
I feel like whenever you say that this is like something that happens in marriage, like you're not saying it's like in my marriage. You think you're saying this is a general thing. I feel like usually what I think that a reasonable person would listen to what he said and assume that.
About authority over women, if I have a responsibility over her, I must have a degree of authority.
Yeah.
For the same reason, if I have responsibility over and people are going to use their mind, it's an example, an analogy, responsibility over a child, I have to have some authority.
Yeah.
So you believe as part of your ownership or your property of the woman, you have authority over her.
No, I believe if
well, I think that you do, right? A guy and a wife, I think that they have authority over each other in a lot of ways, right? Especially in terms of like how you can approach and deal with the opposite sex, right? I think this is very clear thing that you give the opposite, the person in the relationship that you're in, you give that person the authority to determine how involved you are with the opposite sex to a degree. So, like, you know, some women are okay with, like, guys, you know, that have close other girlfriends, or not girlfriends, but, like, you know, female friends, other girls are not, etc. So I think that you do clearly give your spouse or your partner a degree of authority. I'm surprised he's not just saying that, to be honest, because it is true.
That's what you said.
I believe you have responsibility over something. You have to have a degree of authority, or you can't be responsible.
Yeah, but authority means, again, that you're the boss.
The point I'm making, if you...
Yeah, you can make a very strong argument for mutual authority between each person having the authority over each other, and I think that's a fair and a good argument.
Please let me finish at this point. The point I was trying to make was talking about the safety of a woman. She was walking alone at night, and I was saying, well, I wouldn't let my woman walk alone at night. And they said, well, you're not in charge of her. You don't get to decide what she does. I said, I understand, but if I'm responsible for her safety, and I'm the person who's burdened with making sure she is safe, I have to have the authority to say, don't put yourself in unsafe situations. The two things are linked.
Well, yeah,
that's a really weird situation. Like, and like, I think that's like one of those things where it's like, it's very hard to say that in that context, somebody is like a bad person for trying to exert some level of control over somebody because they're trying to help them. But I don't think that that is a norm situation. This is like a 1% thing. And I feel like there are many other circumstances where the authority aspect is really null and void.
You don't have authority. You have you can absolutely have the right to say to the woman you're with, I don't think you should, but ultimately...
If she decides, then I can't force her.
Right, so authority implies that you have the ability to control someone.
No, authority believes... the authority implies...
What do you guys think? Because, like, in my opinion, I think authority implies that you have a recourse if the authority is not followed. Like, that's kind of what authority implies. In many cases, yeah, authority implies control. And but what does control imply? Control implies the use of force, or the ability to use force to exercise that control, and thus exercising the authority.
I have the moral right to sit and say that that's an irresponsible thing to do, and I'm responsible for
That's not what authority means.
Well, I'm not going to... If you think I'm going to lock somebody up in their room, is that what you're implying?
No, I don't think you know what authority means.
I know what it means. I'm saying that if
I just a different description of what authority means.
If I have responsibility for her safety, then I have to have the authority to tell her not to do unsafe things.
Yeah, but authority means that you have some form of control over this woman.
Yes.
I think you're trying to... What you're trying to do...
I'm only trying to get to what you think. Honestly, I am. I come with no agenda here at all.
I understand. And I'm explaining very, very clearly.
I think that Piers Morgan clearly has an agenda. Piers Morgan is also another person who the public fucking hates all the time. He's always getting called out for being toxic and being the bad person. So fucking finally, he can find the one guy in the world that is more disliked than he is and bring him on the show. And for once, he's the good guy. You know, so yes, everybody always has a fucking agenda. I don't think that I don't think Piers Morgan is trying to like he's not really going hard on him. I think that Piers Morgan has been more fair than not fair, but there's clearly a bias.
If I have responsibility over said subject, I have to have authority over it. So let me say you have children, right?
Right.
You have responsibility for them.
No, I have legal authority over my children.
Yes, that's correct.
That is very different to having legal authority over my wife or my female partner.
Completely, but the point I'm trying to make...
So you accept that?
I accept that you...
Because you used the analogy of responsibility for a child.
Yeah.
My friend, these are very...
These are actually really important things.
They're important things, but you interrupt me every 5 seconds, so it's hard for me to actually explain my point. The point I'm making here is very simple. You have children, and you're responsible for their safety.
So I'm glad Andrew Tate called them out on that. Interrupting people while they're trying to talk. The reality is that it is super important, because if he didn't do that, and like this is the part of the clip that we saw, right, already, is that he will just walk all over you. He will craft a narrative, make you look bad, and it's like you have to assert yourself and be confident about that. Be assertive and, you know, like aggressive with that sometimes. It doesn't mean yell over somebody or anything, but you can be assertive without doing that. And I think him doing that here is the example of that.
You're going to have authority to say don't go out at night, perhaps because you want them to be safe.
I have legal authority.
You have a legal authority.
Yeah.
Legal authority. I'm saying that if I had a woman, and the question where you've raised this soundbite from, I was asked about protecting a woman, making sure she's safe. And I would say I wouldn't want her to go out at night on her own because I'm responsible for her safety. And someone said, well...
I think that's fair. That's totally fair. There's nothing wrong with him saying that.
You don't have authority over her to do that. And I said, well, no, I can't force her to stay inside. But if she were to ask me, how do I protect myself at night? I would say, well, you should stay inside. That's how you...
That's a completely fair answer. Like, that's how I feel. Yeah. Like, absolutely, yeah. This is totally fine. 100%.
I don't have an issue with what
so
you
we
just
agree.
Said. No, because,
it's the semantics.
No, it's not semantics. And this is where I don't think you quite get why there's a furore over what you say. With respect. Because the semantics point would be if we're saying the same thing in different ways. But we're not. I'm saying to you that when you say I have to have some authority over a woman, I say to you, you have no right to any authority over a woman. You do over a child if it's your child, because you are the legal appointed guardian of that child.
Understood.
You're not a legally appointed guardian or authority over your wife or female partner.
Legally appointed, absolutely not. I agree. However, when it comes to things like personal responsibility or personal safety, men, largely by society, are accepted. We're the protectors and providers. We can sit here and pretend that in the world we live in, if me and my wife were walking down the street and men were to come up and try and attack us, I wouldn't be the one fighting. But we both know in reality I would.
Right.
I have a degree of responsibility to protect her. So if I have a degree of responsibility to protect her physically, then the point I'm trying to make is I will do my best to make sure she's never putting herself in unsafe situations.
Do you wish you hadn't used the word authority?
The authority is something that she would give to me. She would come to me and say, how can I make sure I'm as safe as possible?
But
I feel like if somebody is telling you, as I said, I think that the idea of authority is, again, it's like the fucking implication. The implication of authority is control. The implication of control is the ability to assert control. So if she's asking him, what should I do? And he's telling her, then I think this is, again, consensual. And this is kind of what I was saying earlier, is that, you know, people can be in a consensual relationship however they want. Like, if they want to do some BDSM shit, I don't care. If, you know, he wants to be a stay-at-home dad and she's the one that's going to make the money, I don't care. And also, if she's going to let him make all the decisions and she just sits at home and is a housewife, that's totally fucking fine. It's worked for thousands of years. It's got no problem working now. I just don't think it should be mandatory.
I want to interrupt you. I just want to point out that's not what authority means.
If someone gives, a person can give
voluntary authority is not authority.
No, but that's the point.
It's not.
Piers.
Andrew, it's not.
Piers, if a woman comes to me and says, I want you to keep me safe, she is handing me authority for her safety.
But do you understand the difference between having authority over somebody and somebody giving you permission to have authority?
Completely. I never said
one is consensual and one isn't.
But why are we pretending I do unconsensual things?
Because you literally say, I must have a degree of authority. I have to have some authority. And the point
only if I'm responsible for her safety. If I'm not responsible for her safety.
I feel like this. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have authority.
If your position.
I feel like, yeah, I can see kind of what he's saying in a way, but this is, again, like, I feel like he's already said the thing that he kind of needed to say, which is, you know, she can do whatever she wants at the end of the day. I think that's fair. Yeah, yeah, he's already said that thing. I feel like this is already, like, this is not, like, we're done now.
Now is that with her permission, I would like to have authority when we go out at night to protect her. That's a different
That was always my position.
But that's not what you said.
But that was always my position, Piers.
So again, I simply say to you,
It is what I said, though.
Do you wish you'd phrased it a different way?
No, because we're talking about long format copy where I'm talking about a woman who has come to me and said, you're responsible for making sure I'm safe. I said, well, then I have to make the decisions.
When an 18-year-old boy reads, I must have some authority over a woman, what do you think he thinks?
Well, I understand that. And I said this earlier when you tried to say I was backtracking, which I'm not doing.
No, actually, I'm not. I don't want to. Okay. I'm not trying to gotcha you.
Cool.
I'm trying to work out exactly what you actually
I understand
think.
With massive fame comes massive responsibility. I understand that a percentage of the population are always going to take everything that's said by anybody out of context.
Would you change the wording of what you said?
No, I would just encourage people to watch my long format copy and understand it fully.
Would you tell an 18-year-old boy you don't have authority over women.
Absolutely.
You would say that?
Unless a woman comes to him and says, you're responsible for my safety, please make sure keep me safe. Like
I
my
see.
woman
Now
says,
that
comes to
Andrew
me.
Tate, I can sign up to.
Exactly. I totally agree. I totally agree. I think that is totally fucking fine for him to say that. Yeah, that's totally fucking okay. That is reasonable. That's okay. Why is that so hard? I don't know. I don't know why it's so hard. But all right, good. We've gotten through that now. Great.
We agree.
Yeah, but I don't agree with what you said before.
Because you're taking a soundbite from a 2-hour
Yeah, but you haven't been
conversation.
taken out of context, because I read you the entire sentence. It's very
But you've
confusing.
ignored all the context around the sentence, my friend.
You can't ignore a sentence that says, I must have a degree of authority.
But you can when there's a 2-hour conversation where a woman is telling me if she makes me responsible for her
It's
safety.
unfortunate that I don't have the actual link to where this conversation started initially, because I'm going to be honest, like, I've watched a lot of Andrew Tate content. I assumed that he probably did not add that nuance. This might be a bias of mine. I could be wrong, and that's why I said I wanted to see it myself. But I'm not going to automatically assume that this is true.
Safety, and me explaining, well, if I'm responsible for your safety, I have the authority to make decisions. So
Do
yes,
you
you've ignored all the context.
Do you respect women?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Do you think that 18, 19-year-old women are more attractive than 25-year-old women?
I think there's attractive people.
This is the part that we saw.
That's a loaded question. I don't know.
Well, it's not really, is it?
I can't.
You know why I'm asking you?
Of course I do, but I can't sit here and
for
say.
the benefit of viewers who don't know why I'm asking, you said this
There we go.
in general.
Yeah, we've seen this
is
part.
also one of the reasons men find youth attractive. You want to blow up the internet? I'll blow up the internet right effing now. The reason 18 and 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25-year-olds is because they've been through less dick. People say, oh, you can't say that, but yes, I can. A 19-year-old is more attractive than a 26-year-old woman, and I'll tell you why. Because that 26-year-old has talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up. That is misogyny.
Why?
Because you are encouraging a mindset about 25-year-old women that makes them sound out to be infinitely less desirable than 18, 19-year-olds, and having effectively been having too much sex to be taken in a more respectful way.
That would, well, firstly, even if that was the case, that wouldn't be misogyny.
But what did you mean by what you said?
That's not misogyny.
I will reiterate that I think that it is misogyny. I think that it's misogyny because, yes, it is ageist, but the ageist element of it is also misogynist. And the reason why it is because it assumes that a woman's value is determined by her age. Do you see kind of what I'm saying? Is that, like, it doesn't do that. It's not a one-to-one. It's like an A equals B equals C situation, right? So it's like if you agree with the first thing, then you have to agree with the second thing, which leads you to the third thing. So, yeah, I don't like this. But I do think that, by the way, I think that he's right with a lot of guys. And this is a point that I don't know why he didn't bring this up. And this is what I said in the original video. I think he does a terrible job defending this point. And I've said before, like, I think Andrew Tate in general, like, this so far, besides this part, I think has been relatively good. But for a lot of things I've seen with Andrew Tate, he does a pretty bad job defending himself. Just in general. And I think it's very easy to defend and say that, yeah, guys don't want to be with a girl that's dated a bunch of other guys before. That's just all there is to it. And, you know, this is how it's been forever, and that's all there, you know, I mean, like anybody could say that. Many guys would say that. Yeah, it's not, this is not something that is some kind of, like, massive taboo. I mean, there's a reason why, like, just turned 18 fucking porn is so popular. Think about it. But why? I think that the reason why is that guys want a girl that probably won't compare them to other guys. I think that's a big element to it, is that, you know, guys, says, no, it's you. It is? Yeah, just look it up. And so anyway, like, yeah, guys, they want a girl. It's like whenever they're having sex with them or whatever, they don't want to be thinking about, you know, get self-conscious about it. Like, oh, you know, am I doing better or worse than the other guy? I think that's a big element. I think also girls feel the same way too. I don't think this is a one-way street, but let's not pretend like it's a two-way street and it's the exact same both ways. No, this is very much a male expectation on women, much more than it's a woman expectation on men.
Because it's not anti-women. I'm saying that an 18 or a 19-year-old woman would be more desirable.
Pretty anti-25-year-old women.
Anti-25-year-old women, we can argue.
Well, are people unhappy about this? If you're insecure? Oh, I think that there are some guys, it's because they're insecure. I think other guys don't want to have a girl that, like, let's say she has a, well, and this is not a female thing only, right? But let's say there's a girl and she has a, you know, she has a bunch of, like, she's had like a crazy boyfriend, and the boyfriend was like cheating on her. And then now this girl, whenever you date her, she is always paranoid that you're cheating on her too, because her last boyfriend was. And I think that you can easily make that argument both ways, right? Is like guys can feel that way about girls too. But I think that's also a logical reason why somebody would want to date somebody younger with less experience.
Not misogyny.
Well, that's misogyny.
No, it's not.
Well, being anti any woman at all is misogyny.
Not when I'm saying that women are beautiful and attractive at a certain age and saying the age.
You're saying 18, 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25.
Well, than ageist, perhaps, but misogynistic, absolutely.
Is that
not.
But you just accepted it was misogyny.
No, I didn't. You said it was misogyny. I'm telling you, no, it's not.
So you don't think if you're saying slightly hateful things about a 25-year-old...
That's not slightly hateful.
Well, it is. You think you say that to a woman's face if she's 25?
It's not slightly hateful. When
so you would I think it 100% is. Like, if you told that to somebody, that would offend them. Like, I don't know why this is such a hard point to say. It's the same as saying, like, whenever you're fucking 50, you're going to look uglier than you did whenever you're 20. I feel like nobody wants to hear that said to them, even though everybody generally agrees this is true.
25-year-old woman and tell her exactly what I've just read out.
Why would I walk up to a random 25-year-old woman?
Because you said it in public on the internet, and it's been listened to and watched by millions and millions of young, impressionable boys.
Correct. There was a large panel. There was a conversation. There was hours long of conversation. There were feminists attacking men for toxic masculinity and attacking me and saying things. And I said things back which were going to antagonize them. Which you've done yourself a bunch of times.
I think a lot of allegations of toxic masculinity are not toxic.
Correct.
I do think that kind of sentence that I just read out, that paragraph, is actually toxic. If you genuinely mean that, and you say you wouldn't say it to a woman's face, but you said it in public about women of that age,
I think that it's only toxic if it's not a two-way street. So, like, for example, if you were to apply that same level of standards to men as well, I think that it wouldn't be toxic. Well, it wouldn't be toxic in the same way. You could still say that it's toxic because it's like super Puritan or, you know, very repressive. But I think that it becomes much more toxic whenever it's only towards women.
Do you think that's misogynist? And I think you probably do too. I don't think it's misogynistic. I understand why it can be insulting. You wouldn't say it to a woman's face? Well, it depends. You're making out like I'm walking around the street going up to random 25-year-olds. Well, effectively, you're doing it to tens of millions of people online. There's no difference. Not at all. We're discussing a topic. We were discussing the ideal age of a man. Should young boys, right, in their teens, are you comfortable that they would have that mindset? Be honest. I think that young boys in their teens lack life experience. They lack nuance. And they need to be very, very careful what they're digesting online, whether it's my content or anybody else's. Yeah, I think you know for a fact millions of them are digesting.
I would agree with that, and I'm sure I'll probably talk about this later in the video. But I am of the mind that teenagers and people under 18 being on social media websites and having accounts on social media websites is a net negative. I think that is a net negative, and if teenagers and, you know, underage people were unable to have accounts on social media, I think this would improve society, and this would improve the mental health of those teenagers. Exactly what you're saying. Completely. The entire internet, to a degree. I think any subject you can find, there's going to be a whole heap of content. I come back to the Joe Rogan thing, Andy. Yes. Is that a lot of what you say, I agree with. Yeah. Right? I do, genuinely. I've written a lot of stuff you said. A lot of the stuff you talk about, I think, yeah, he's got a good point, right? So we agree about a lot of things. But when I read that kind of thing, I'm like, how much of that is you? How much of that is some act? Do you regret saying stuff like this? I don't. And actually, do you see it as weakness to admit you shouldn't have said something like that? No, I don't live with regret. I think what's happened is that, like I said, long format content, arguments with feminists, arguments with the toxic masculine crowd, arguments with the left. And they're going to take a small clip, small sentence from ours, and they're going to try and paint me as a villain. But I'm not left or right. I don't know what you are, Piers. Exactly. That's my point. No, but that's my point. And I understand. I think that a reasonable person would listen to that. And again, I think that it is true that guys, you know, they do want younger girls, etc. You know, there's biological reasons, societal reasons, etc. Right? I don't think that you really need to talk around that issue. I think honestly, I mean, isn't Piers Morgan's wife like 12 years younger than him? I don't know about this. I'm not sure, but you know, here we are.
And you're doing exactly as I knew would happen on this interview, which is because you're a busy man. You're not going to watch hours and hours and hours of video.
Actually, I have watched hours and hours of video, and I'm going to come to the stuff where I agree with you, and I'm going to come to the stuff about your censorship, which I have issues with. So this is, you know, it's a long interview, right?
Sure.
I just thought off the top, you said to me, and you were quite bold about it, well, go on, then let's go through these.
And you should keep going. I will sit here and stand by what I said. I believe that
on that, I just read to you then.
Yeah.
Do you wish you hadn't said that?
I understand how it's been misconstrued. I understand how it's been weaponized against me. Do I regret it because it's been weaponized and used against me? Well, that's slightly annoying.
That's not why I want you to
Did I at the time mean what I said in the context of the conversation? Which obviously...
Yeah, I wish he would just say kind of what I'm saying, because I think that's what he believes. And I think that's what everybody kind of understands. That's why guys like younger girls. Like, this is absolutely a societal trend. I feel like this is not as extremist of a point as it seems. Maybe he will say it. We'll see.
You're not familiar with, and the people at home are not familiar with? No, I meant what I said.
The 25-year-old women, they've just talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up.
Well, there's a whole bunch of context and conversation around that's been missed, and I
don't think I'm missing much context.
Well, I encourage people who are interested to go watch it.
I don't know why Piers doesn't ask why not provide what context would make that language acceptable. Because wouldn't that be a much better thing to say than, well, oh, there's like this fucking, this like amorphous context that exists that nobody knows what it is, but everybody can assume it's something that's probably not. It's a very bad way for him to interview Andrew Tate. I think he should have asked that.
Right, but I mean, I've just read out 3 sentences on the bounce there. I don't think there's any context I'm missing. I mean, you've made it pretty clear what you think about the difference.
What's the context
between
here?
18 and 90-year-old women?
I wasn't talking about myself, even. I was talking with a Muslim guy who was on the panel, and he was explaining how youth is very valued in most parts of the world, and why virginity is valued in most parts of the world. The feminists were arguing against it, and I was sitting there, actually very much like you, a mediator between the two, explaining why in most of the world still today, perhaps not in the Western world, virginity is coveted, youth is coveted in most of the world, and throughout all of human history. And I was sitting there making the point, explaining why in certain parts of the world they think how they do,
well,
even though it's very different to the Western world. So I was making a point, mediating between two groups very similar to yourself. The conversation has been misunderstood. They've taken this clip of it, and it's being weaponized and used against me. I understand that is because I am now the most famous Google person on the planet.
I think that's relatively fair. Like, if he's explaining it, like, in the context that he is explaining it in, I do not find this bad.
It's inconvenient, sure. But I'm definitely not a danger to women in any regard. I date women 25, 26, 27 years old all the time. None of them are offended by the things I
don't think you're a danger to women.
I
think the danger, if it concerns you, the danger is the influence you have on young men to have this kind of mindset about women. And that's really where I'm trying to get to what you really believe and how much you've just shot off.
And I think that's true. I think that if you were, and this is like kind of a common sense question, right? Do you think that Andrew Tate and his content has escalated negative like language and negative treatment towards women by men? I think yes, like fucking absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Off because you think it's like entertaining and you haven't really given it much thought. And whether now you're a bit older and you've had all the fallout, whether part of you is thinking, actually, if I had, as Joe Rogan says, if you hadn't said stuff like this, you'd probably still be on all these platforms. You'd be massively more popular, massively more famous, massively richer. So I'm really just trying to get to
I agree with that. I think that's true.
Blatantly misogynist stuff. Do you just wish you hadn't said it?
With great power comes great responsibility. It was certainly said before the great power came. It's inconvenient to a degree. However, like I said,
I think it's a little bit unfair for him to say that it's before the great power came, because for the other 2 previous statements, he basically defended and then talked around them.
The time, with the context of the conversation, I know that I'm not saying things which I believe to be detrimental to the world. However, they've been misconstrued and they've been misunderstood.
If a 25-year-old woman was watching this, would you say, I'm sorry for saying that?
Well, I wouldn't want anyone to be offended by anything I say, but I say things. But I say things that offend, and this is the thing that's interesting, Piers. Please let me finish.
I don't think that he should say sorry for that, because if you say sorry, a lot of people view saying sorry as an admission of guilt. It would be bad. It would be a bad idea for him to say that he's sorry, because if he does that, it means that in a lot of people's minds that he's guilty.
Yeah, you're behaving like a politician. But hang on, you could say I'm interrupting.
You do,
but you're answering a different question to the one I asked you. So, as an interviewer, you're behaving.
Sure. Okay, let's. Sure.
Okay, you accept that. Let's accept we both got on. Okay. So, again, my point is simply, if a 26-year-old woman is watching this and has heard those comments, would you just say to her, "Look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that"?
No, I won't. I will say that I am sorry that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world.
That doesn't mean you're sorry.
No, I'm not sorry. That's the point I'm making. I'm sorry if that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world that believe that, and I was mediating for a conversation.
Parts of the world that believe that about 26-year-old women are parts of the world where women are not allowed.
I will also add that the clip that was showed before the full interview removed this context. Listen,
parts of the world that believe
you. However, there's a large contingent of the world that believe that, and I was mediating for a conversation.
I don't think that I was mediating for a conversation was in the original video. I'm fairly certain that it was not. It was, it wasn't, it was not. Damn, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think that if he's, because of course, him mediating a conversation and literally just stating somebody else's beliefs to the other person to explain it, I don't think that's wrong. Chat's lying. Let's watch it. I'm actually really, really curious. Sorry. Yeah, let me see if we can watch this. Do I have the original video in here? Yeah, I'm actually really curious about this. Fuck. Where is the... Where is it? Give me a second, guys. Sorry. Okay, is this it? Yeah.
Andrew Tate. No, that is misogyny.
Why?
Being anti any woman at all is misogyny.
Sorry that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world.
That doesn't mean you're sorry.
No, I'm not sorry. That's the point I'm making. I'm sorry if that.
Listen, so was that it? Look at that. So they didn't say it. Or sorry, he didn't say it. Keep going.
However, there's a large contingent of the world.
That doesn't mean you're sorry.
No, I'm not sorry. That's the point I'm making. I'm sorry if that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world that believe that, and I was mediating for a conversation.
Okay, so he did say that. But I guess, it didn't really make sense that he was mediating for a conversation whenever you didn't hear actually what conversation it was. Okay, that was originally in there. Okay, yeah, I didn't remember. I don't remember hearing that.
The world that believe that about 26-year-old women are parts of the world where women are not allowed out on their own.
That's a conversation.
They have to wear full burqas.
Well, that's a conversation.
They're not allowed to drive cars.
That's nothing to do with me.
But is that the kind of world for women that you?
I was mediating a conversation.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I don't live in a country where that happens.
You're using that as the excuse for why.
I think I don't live in a country where that happens is very different than what do I believe. I find that is a... I think that is a deliberate use of language. Yeah.
I'm not sorry for saying it.
It's not an excuse.
Is that there are parts of the world where this is fine.
My friend.
So my question to you is, well, do you think it's fine?
I don't think it's fine. I live in a world where...
You don't think it's fine?
The reason
This isn't that hard, Andrew. You can simply say, Piers, you know what?
Yeah.
With the benefit of hindsight, I wish I hadn't said it like that. And if a 26-year-old...
No, I don't think... What's wrong with him saying it like that if he's just explaining it in a debate? I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying it if he's just presenting the information to somebody else. Why would he apologize for that? Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
...was watching, I'm sorry I said that, because that actually is blatantly misogynist. And even though that's a view held by other parts of the world, it's not a view I share. Now, I would respect you more if you said that than if you try and say, well, it's said in other parts of the world, so I'm not sorry.
I think
that doesn't tell me what you think.
Then you need to understand why my content existed in the first place. My content existed because I tried my very hardest to be an absolute and utter realist, especially with uncomfortable truths. I was pointing out that very uncomfortable...
Is that a truth? Then?
It's an uncomfortable truth in many parts of the world. It's not a truth that I'm happy about. It's not a truth I'm creating.
Hang on. No, hang on. You're doing it again. What do you mean that's the truth in other parts of the world?
That's what it absolutely is. I don't even know why Piers is trying to get him to restate this. Like, it's absolutely a truth in parts of the world that guys want girls that are virgins. Are we really debating this? It's in the fucking Bible. Like, what? Yeah, why are we even? Why are we having this debate? It's fucking obvious. Yeah, it's true here. Give me one. I have to get a cookie, and by a cookie I mean 2 cookies. I'll be right back. This is going to be a long video. You want to hear some real fucking redneck hillbilly shit? Is that back in the day, my mom said that the phrase that guys would use is to find a girl young and raise her up right whenever they're looking for a girlfriend or a wife. Yep. True, buddy, yeah. That's what they think. All right. You Americans are disgusting. I guarantee you that the person saying that, probably the age of consent in their country is probably lower than ours. There's a good fucking chance. Sorry about that. I had to have a cookie.
What you said is not, you're not talking about another part of the world. You're talking about what you believe is the difference between 18 and 90-year-olds and 26-year-olds.
I was talking about...
It's your belief.
I was talking about what the people on the panel believe the difference is.
So what do you think the difference is?
I think the difference is age.
What's the difference then?
Well, then a 26-year-old's older than a 19-year-old.
And so you stand by what you said about talking to the guys, being to the club more times, being effed and dumped more times. Well, you believe that or not?
No, there's plenty of 26-year-old women who have been with one man or virgins,
right.
Of course.
So you don't believe that?
I don't think that the age is the only thing that's going to decipher how many men or women...
Right, so if you don't actually believe...
That's true. That's definitely true.
What you said, just say sorry.
It's not about...
And also, you want to talk about 27. Go and look at the age that... Here. Let me see if I can find the chart here. Yeah. Here we go. And so this is a chart, and I apologize for the quality, but this is a very, very common chart that's used. Woman's age versus the age of men who looks the best to her. So, obviously 20 is 23, and, there we go, and It's 20, 20, 30, 29, 30, 34, 35, etc. And then we have a man's age versus the age of women who look best to him. 20 is 20, 21 is 20, 28 is also 20, 35 is 20. And keep in mind, the ages probably started at 20. They didn't start at 18. And so we go down to 42, it's 20, 44, 21. Back down to 40, back to 46. Well, now we're back down to 20. 47, 20. 49, 20. And it never goes over 25. You don't see 26 or 27 on this list anywhere. Okay? So actually what Andrew Tate is saying, there's a chart. There's a fucking chart. It says it. Regardless of whatever you want to say. Leonardo, yes, this is scientific research that was paid for by Leonardo DiCaprio. Yes, exactly.
Believe in what I'm saying. It's about you understanding that there's large conversations going on.
I'm just reading back stuff you've said.
I know
and I'm asking you, do you believe it?
I believe that it's more likely a 26-year-old's had more partners than a 19-year-old.
You don't know that.
I don't know that. You're right.
In fact, there could be absolutely no evidence for that.
That is such a dumb thing for Piers to say. It's clearly more fucking likely that somebody who is older and has spent, 7 or 8 years in their adult life or 10 years in their adult life is going to, on average, have more partners than somebody who spent one.
Whatsoever.
Completely agree.
So why say it? Why stigmatize all 26-year-old women?
It's not about, we're repeating ourselves here.
Well, not really. I'm just trying to get to what you actually believe.
I believe that men find youth attractive in general. I believe that in the context of the conversation...
25-year-old women aren't old.
I agree with you, they're not. Especially I'm old.
Where's 25? Somebody find 25 on the list over there. Somebody find 25. It's not on there? That's crazy.
I'm a lot older than that. The point I was making was part of mediating a panel, a conversation between feminists and some Muslim guys.
I get it.
Okay,
I get it.
Good. So you understand why I said the sentence.
But as far as I know, you weren't espousing what a Muslim man might think. You were espousing what you think.
I was espousing what the people on the panel believed.
But you were saying what you think.
I feel like you're trying to pin me down.
If it's not what you believe...
These two things are being mixed together too much, and it's very confusing. Because there's one thing that Andrew Tate is saying, and that's the quote, and that's something that he said on a panel that was phrasing something to somebody else. And then also Andrew Tate is saying that men find youth attractive, which it would seem like these two things are the same, but technically in this conversation, they're two different things. This is very hard to follow.
Just say...
This is the type of thing that somebody who doesn't like Andrew Tate will think that he's losing on, and somebody who does like Andrew Tate will think that he's winning on.
I don't believe that.
Because it's hard to follow.
What part wouldn't I believe?
Well, you tell me which part you don't believe. There's the sentence. Which part would you now say you don't believe?
I believe that 25-year-old women perhaps have had, because they've been alive longer, maybe have had more partners, but I don't believe that makes them a bad person.
Right. But you understand that the way you phrased it makes
it was not about being a bad person. It was about being attractive or being appealing to the opposite sex. Being a bad person is, again, I don't know why he does this. Is he will restate what somebody says slightly different that means something else.
Every 25-year-old
I understand.
Feel a bad person.
No, I don't think so.
Of course you do. You're not stupid. Come on.
Piers.
Andrew, you're not stupid. You know what that sounds like to any 25, 26-year-old woman.
Completely. And
right? So you have maligned every 25, 26-year-old woman with that statement. And I'm simply asking you, to all those who are not of the type of women that you've described here, are you sorry?
I don't want anybody to be offended by anything I say. I want to be a positive force in the world. I don't want anybody to hear what I say and make them feel bad about themselves. I want all people to live righteous and good, whether they're male or female. And anybody who...
You lead a righteous life?
I think I do, yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me. Simply asking you what you think righteous means.
I think righteous is living true to your heart and knowing that you're doing good by people, not snaking anybody, not lying to anybody. I know I live a very righteous life.
Have you ever been in love?
I mean, I feel like you can't say that you're being and doing right for people whenever he has some of the sales pitches for the Hustlers University and this kind of stuff, this, 100 tips that are going to make you money right now, right off the bat with like business. I find that to be very misleading, and I don't think that really stands any sort of litmus test at all. Like, this is not an authentic thing. It's not true. It is misleading. I don't like it.
Yeah.
How many times?
Plenty. I believe in love between men and women.
I mean, real love, where it's...
Yeah. I believe,
how many times would you say?
Enough. I believe men and women are a beautiful union. I think we're slightly different, but when we work together, we're the most powerful force in the world.
How many women have you loved?
I don't know, Piers. A few.
Give me a ballpark. 5, 10, 20?
Let's say...
You don't forget how many people you've been in love with.
Let's say 10. I mean, I've been in love, and I certainly believe that men and women, when they work together, it's the most beautiful force on the planet. I believe in family. I believe in children. I believe in...
If you believe in family and children and love, why are you single?
I'm not single.
Well, you're not married, that's what I mean.
Well, if I was married, the last thing I would do is advertise it to the feral psychopaths on the internet. So
I'm not a feral psychopath.
No, you can't say that, Piers. You can't fucking say that. Because the feral psychopaths on the internet, they might not be you, but they're watching you. And they're waiting for him to say that. Yeah, I think that's, that is definitely not, I mean, I don't know why he's saying that. I mean, obviously, this is not a private conversation.
Well,
you called me friend earlier.
Can be debated, Piers. But the point I'm making as a whole is that all of these.
Do you want to get married? Is my point.
No, but let's please for a second.
You don't, or you do?
Let's please for a second, because you've interrupted me so many times I've failed to.
Well, actually, I've only interrupted you, just to be clear, when you've actually answered a different question.
Cool. Well, then, on all these points you're making,
you've admitted that.
If he had interrupted him on the amount of times that he answered a different question, Piers would have interrupted him even more than he did interrupt them. I think Piers is actually not doing a very good job trying to, like, fucking laser down on some of the ways that he's using language to obfuscate what he means.
On all these points you're making, on repeat, you're taking these sentences and on repeat you're using you're weaponizing them against me.
I'm not weaponizing anything.
Okay, it's fine.
No. You're weaponizing the weaponizing, which doesn't exist.
No problem.
You said to me, come on, bring it on, read out all the things that you think are blatant misogyny. All I've done is literally read out all the things we identified from all the research that I thought were blatantly misogynist.
Understood.
And given you the chance to respond. And the only time I've interrupted you is when you've tried to answer a completely different question.
Understood, Piers.
And he has. Like, I think that Piers has probably interrupted him whenever he shouldn't have interrupted him. I feel like that's definitely fucking true. But there have been a lot of times, let's be fair to Piers, there have been a lot of times where Andrew Tate gets asked a question and he answers a different question. This is 100% happened in this interview.
But these things were said in large context, where often I'm talking about how, for example, on the same podcast where you've read one of them sentences from, I was talking about how it's a man's duty to die by a woman. And the guy asked me, he said, if 10 men with knives attacked your woman, wouldn't you just... I said, yeah, I'd stand and die. I'd never just run away, because I have a duty as a man. I must die on the spot to protect her honor and my honor.
Bro, I love how, like, with some of these guys, they pretend like real life is like a fucking all or nothing Rust server. Like, it's a massive all or nothing Rust server. Like, shit's going fucking crazy, etc. Like, it's like, yeah, there's gonna be 10 guys, bro. What happens if 10 guys randomly show up with knives and they want to stab your wife? Fuck, man. Like, what happens if I go downstairs and there's a velociraptor in the living room?
I'm talking about a man having responsibility to his duties. I'm talking about the old traditional ways of masculinity. And what happens is a few sentences from such a long conversation is taken and used against me.
I understand that.
So I want you to understand that I'm talking about protecting and providing for women. I'm talking about a man making sure.
Do you want to get married?
No, but we have to all feed into each other, Piers. I'm talking about protecting.
It's not a hard question.
No, but I'm talking about protecting and providing for a woman. I'm talking about a man being responsible for her safety.
I understand.
So of course I believe in men and women. Of course I believe in love. Of course I believe in marriage. Of course I believe in family.
No, but
the idea that I don't believe in the idea that I don't believe in these things is crazy.
I didn't ask you if you believed in it. I asked you if you're going to get married.
One day, absolutely.
You'd like to.
If I'm not married already, I will be married one day. If I'm not.
Well, you might be secretly married.
I could be married, correct.
Why would you not tell me either way?
Why would I advertise?
The reason why he wouldn't say why he's married or not is that being married means that your name is on some form of public documentation. That's why he's not saying it. And the reason why he's being careful of that is the reason why, basically, so why he got, and this is kind of external from like whether or not he was actually doing human trafficking or not, human sex trafficking. I'm not sure if he was or not, but his story is that he got swatted. He used that word. So it's very clear that he is savvy to these kinds of things, and in being savvy to those kinds of things, he would also know that the marriage certificate and the documentation of the marriage would also be public record that he would want to avoid to keep a potential wife out of the line of fire. So, yes, this is the actual reason. I think.
To the feral psychopaths of the world who have tried their very best to destroy me for an opinion about my private life and the things that are most sacred to me.
Which is, you think if you said you were married, everyone would hate you?
I don't know about people hate me. It's about me understanding that I'm a hard target, but I am very, very protective of the people I care about.
Right. But you believe in the concept of marriage?
Completely. That's what we were talking about the whole time.
What do you think?
We talked about a man giving a woman away. Okay. I believe in marriage more than anybody. In fact, I believe in marriage no, please. Okay. I believe in marriage in the traditional sense. I believe a man has a duty to stand up and be a real man. I believe that the problem with the world today that we are facing is that not enough men are sticking to the age-old ways of masculinity. I believe that me standing up and saying a man must protect a woman and provide for her, so he needs to make sure that she's safe. He needs a degree of authority to protect her.
I have no problem with...
I'm not about being authority over a woman, but I am generally a traditionalist with this kind of stuff as well. I don't think that it's a bad thing.
We do have a problem with it. That's the world we're in now.
Andrew, I'm over here.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't have a problem with what you just said. Here's where my problem comes, right? There are a lot of clips of you floating around on the internet, as you know. One of them has you saying, bang out the machete, boom in her face, grip her by the neck, shut up, bitch. In another, you say slap, slap, grab, choke, shut up, bitch, sex.
That sounds really bad. Like, I'm gonna say, like, that sounds really, really bad whenever Piers reads it off of the sheet of paper. Look at his face. You know, here we go.
When people see those clips and hear you say those things...
Agreed.
Well, I don't think that... It's not hard to misunderstand it.
It is.
You might say that it's consensual. Other people would say, whether it's consensual or not, that's a very ugly way to talk about women.
No, I completely disagree with it with it being ugly if it's consensual. A lot of people like humiliation. That's like the femdom like fucking thing. There are many fetishes and many people that like this kind of stuff, and if it's completely consensual, there's nothing disgusting about it at all. This is things that are being done between two consenting adults.
Now let's
hitting them with machetes.
It's weird.
No,
yes.
Watch the whole video. It's a girl coming at me with a machete and me saying, here, slap the machete out of her hand. She's attacking me. So you don't understand. This is the exact point.
I do understand.
No, people don't watch them in full. And this is actually what's interesting. And please don't interrupt me on this point. Social media has changed in modern times. YouTube 5 years ago was 5, 6, 7, 8 minute long videos. Now we have TikTok, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, YouTube shorts, Instagram stories. Now anything you produce that's long form is cut down to very, very short form. They're interested in clicks, they're interested in engagement.
Of course.
They find
but
the most controversial clips.
I think that him benefiting from that does not necessarily mean that it is untrue, and it also does not necessarily mean that he can't also be maligned by it as well. I think this is a very bad statement, bad thing to say by Piers. I think that's dumb. You know, you can't make a live by the sword, die by the sword argument on this, because this is something that's also done outside of his control. A lot of the people that are posting Andrew Tate clips are not Andrew Tate. I do think that he's right about this, and in many cases, obviously this is one of the biggest criticisms streamers have with LSF, is that whenever a clip goes on LSF, sometimes the context behind the clip is missing, and it makes a person look better or worse than what they originally were.
Can, Andrew, on purpose.
You benefited from all that.
Everybody benefits from social media views, as do you.
Was it the Hustler? True. What is it called?
I had an online school.
Called?
Hustlers University.
Right. And their whole job was to promote your clips, make you rich and famous. So you've benefited from this system. the one you now profess to hate. You benefited from.
I never said I hate.
Well, I don't think that's fair for him to say that, because there's no instance of Andrew Tate saying to only upload the clips or anything like that. So this is not really that great of an argument, and I think honestly this entire point is a waste of time, of if it's beneficial for him or if this is true or not. Yeah, I think this is just a complete waste of time to talk about this.
Baited like the best of them.
I never said I hated it. I'm saying what happened. I don't hate it. I don't hate social media. I think it's a very powerful force. I don't hate the social media. I'm saying
the point is, I think you can talk. Look, you can talk to girlfriends of yours, maybe a secret wife. I don't know. It's entirely up
to you.
Or two. Maybe you've got 10 wives. That's your business. I don't care, right? My only thing is, I don't care what you do in private. If it's consensual between you and another woman, you can do what you like, right? It's your life. I believe in freedom and liberty. It's when you say it in public, it's the influence that this kind of thing has on young men.
Agreed.
Right? And I speak with someone with 3 sons, right? Who are, by the way, they're intrigued by you. They're fascinated, right? You're a big thing in that world of TikTok and so on. So they all are aware of you and what you say. So they're all looking. And when they see things like the machete thing, I get the context, because I'm a 57-year-old guy who's been around the block a bit, and I can get what you said, and you responding to a particular scenario which you'd created.
I don't think that it is, like, to a certain degree, I do not think, and this is always a gray area, so I can't really write out a fucking 10 commandments of when this is and is not true, but I do think that to a certain degree, you are not responsible for people taking you out of context intentionally to misrepresent you. I don't think that Andrew Tate or I or Hassan or Destiny or XQC or any of these guys, I don't think anybody is responsible. Donald Trump, Piers Morgan, I don't think any of them are responsible for whenever their words are taken out of context intentionally and used to misrepresent what they're saying. Because you can do that to anybody. You can say that to anybody. And then to say that, oh, well, you know, you can make it to where that doesn't happen. No, you can't. No, you can't. After hours and hours and years of conversations, no, you can't. There's always going to be something that sounds bad in like a very, very close element. Right? Or very small amount, sorry. Yeah, Dr. K out of context. That's a great example.
Where a woman...
But it can be misunderstood.
I understand. So my point to you is, given that you know it can be misunderstood, do you regret saying things like this on camera where it can be disseminated by less intelligent young males who think that is actually what they should be doing to women?
And
I think that it's also, and this is the gray area that I was saying, somebody says if your rhetoric can easily be interpreted in bad ways, you should probably clarify your positions very clearly at some point, though. I totally agree with that, and that's what I was saying, there's a gray area. And the reason by that, what I mean is that if everybody is just constantly misunderstanding that you always seem to mean this one thing, but you constantly say, oh, that's just not what I mean, bro, everybody knows what you mean. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way I feel. But also, if people are constantly trying to misrepresent you and taking something that you're saying 180 degrees out of context, that's also not your responsibility either.
Finally, we get to the point of the issue, which is the point I tried to make at the very beginning. When I made a video before I was famous that got 500 views, me being concerned that 1% of people will misunderstand it was not relevant. Where you start getting 5 million views a video, 50 million views a video, 1% of people misunderstanding it
change what
becomes no, it doesn't. But it becomes a much larger problem.
I understand.
So with great fame comes great responsibility.
Right.
So
I agree.
Would I now that I'm famous, do I say things the same way as I did back before I was famous? Absolutely not.
Right.
As neither would you or nearly any other famous person on the planet.
So
once you become famous, you have to be a lot more careful with how you say things.
I understand. So my logical follow-up to that remains, do you regret then saying it the way you said it?
I can't live in regret by saying something before I was famous on a camera which barely anybody watched, and then I became famous afterwards. That would be
I think a better way to say it is, do you wish that it didn't happen? Because I am also a person that lives with zero regrets. I have no regrets for basically anything in my life, and I view that every single thing that I have done, for better or for worse, has led me to the position that I am in now, and I am happy and lucky to be in a position that I'm in now, and I can't go back and change things. So yes, I feel the same way.
very asinine way to view the world.
So
I can't live in.
So you stand by all those things?
I can't live in regret because I didn't know I was going to become the most famous man on the planet. That regret would be the wrong word. Is it inconvenient? Sure. But I can't sit here and say, I wish I knew 6 years ago I'd be the most famous man on the planet and monitored all of my speech forever. That's asinine.
You see, one of the problems that people have with you is that they think you have a malevolent influence on young people. This was the excuse that was put out by the big tech companies.
Excuse being the key word.
Well, it may be, actually.
And I do think that if you want to make it a very easy, understandable thing, I will say that I think that Andrew Tate's content has increased hostilities towards women. I absolutely think so. That just straight up, like, I think that more men have used his content as either an excuse or a reason to be more hostile towards women. Now, I'm not saying this is a 100%, it's not a 100%, what's the word for this? This is not a condemnation of him. But I do think that in general, it has been a net increase in negativity towards women. More than any other right-winger? And well, that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Are people disagreeing with this? Do you think that Greek is hostile towards women? Yes. Absolutely. It's not even a question. Absolutely he is. He's normalizing. Yeah, 100%. Basing the whole takeoff of Greek. No, I'm not. I'm not basing the whole takeoff of Greek. I'm just saying in general, this is what I believe. This is what I think.
You know, I intrinsically, I have a problem with censorship. I don't think Donald Trump should be banned from Twitter, for example, because the Ayatollah of Iran remains on Twitter and other social media platforms. And whatever I think of you, you're not the Ayatollah of Iran, right? So to me, there's got to be perspective here. And I don't understand the inconsistency by what companies like Twitter, how they treat the leader of Iran.
You have to understand that the consistency is based completely off of how profitable somebody is or is not. The reality is that, you know, these companies are not going to pull advertising out of Twitter because some guy in Iran is an asshole. But they might do that if Donald Trump or Andrew Tate is on the platform. And then also what ends up happening is that whenever one platform bans someone, then everybody goes and asks, why is the other platform not banning this person? I think this is, again, another just basically cause and effect. You know, you go down the line of just capitalism, basically, like people just doing it for money. It's really just for money. This is not about values. It's for money.
And someone like you, it seems to me they're much more draconian on people like you than they are with people who perhaps should not be allowed platforms. But generally, I don't really agree with no platforming people. But I think what's interesting talking to you is it seems to me like you have gone on a bit of a journey of self-awareness about the impact of some of the stuff you said in the past, and you have said you wouldn't say it again in the same way. Now, you may not want to express regret for that, but it shows me that at the very least, you have evolved to somebody who recognises that these can be quite damaging in the way that you said them.
Completely. As a professional and as an adult, it would be stupid for me to sit here and say that now that I'm the most famous man on the planet, my words do not have more impact than they did before. With impact, with power comes responsibility. And things need to be worded in a very careful way. Now, when I do a long format interview, I have to sit there and consciously understand that any 10 seconds of that can be cut and used against me. So I have to be a lot more careful with how I say my words and how I construct my sentences. Of course, we agree with all of that. That's exactly what's happened to me. I agree with all of that. I don't want to be seen as a negative influence in the world. I know that there's a whole bunch of men. I get thousands of emails a week from men whose lives I've saved. I get thousands of emails a week from men who are on the verge of suicide and I've saved their lives. We're talking about...
And by the way, I don't dispute that at all. You have almost certainly, I would think, from everything I've read about you, I think you have certainly been probably able to be very helpful to young men who have really struggled for self-confidence and all that kind of thing, right?
Completely.
I'm completely prepared to accept that. But there was also, I think, quite a disturbing piece that BuzzFeed did. And it talked about the negative impact of young, impressionable male minds when they've read or seen some of the more inflammatory things you've said. And they quoted...
I think that using kids taking things in the wrong way, and this is kind of what I was getting at in general, is that I think that to a degree, there are a lot of things that you can show people online that will cause them to do dumb things. It's kind of like a good example of this is a lot of the TikTok trends and a lot of the TikTok challenges. Some of the TikTok challenges are self-harm, and they are just popularized and they're fed to kids constantly. So I think this absolutely does happen, and I don't think that it's always the fault of even the content itself. People even do challenges based off of movies or TV shows because something happens on a movie or a TV show, and then they just try to repeat it themselves. You know, whether it's Tide Pods, Cinnamon Challenge. Well, Cinnamon Challenge is not really going to hurt you, but, you know, things like that.
For example, Sandy, 22, from Washington. My father's gone from a man who minored in women's studies in college, who was kind and in touch with his emotions, treated all people, men and women around him, with kindness, to a man who says that whenever he sees an effeminate male stranger, he gets an overwhelming urge to murder them. He loves podcasts. He listens to a lot of podcasts. I know he's listened to Andrew Tate.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's stop for a second.
That's so unfair to blame it on Andrew Tate. Man, like, that girl, did he say if he was divorced from, you know, her mom? I don't know. I think we're leaving out a lot of details. Yeah, and I think this part is very unfair by Piers. And this is what I said originally, right? Is that this is the part that I think Andrew Tate, when at least the part that I saw, really needs to push back on. Because it's completely unfair to let him characterize this, like, random, like, fucking asshole as an outcome of his content. Now, I think his content could have contributed to it, but let's be honest, it was not the only reason.
Professional here, Piers, because you're a professional, as am I. First, she said, did you say that my father went? She said, my father has gone.
Her father.
That's a full-grown man, firstly. So we're talking about my impact on children. You just talked about a full-grown man here. Secondly, I've never talked about murdering effeminate men in anything online ever, in any context ever. So I don't know why they have taken some random person I've never met in the world who's full-grown, an adult, and come to their own conclusions who I've never met and lumped his name in with mine. That is absolutely unfair on every level.
He's right. He's totally right about that. Absolutely, completely fucking right.
I didn't read this BuzzFeed. I didn't read this BuzzFeed article, but after hearing the first point, I know it's trash. That is complete garbage.
I think that it's trash too. I would agree with that. I think that the moment, this is what I've said before with articles, is that as soon as you read an article and you see one inconsistency or one thing that's misleading, I just assume everything else in the article is bullshit too. Like, that's just generally what I do. And so, yeah, like, it's very clear that this person who wrote it is reaching to draw a correlation.
The reason this man believes what he believes.
I've seen a quote from you, and you can tell me what you feel here about this.
Sure.
You talk about people don't want to see men dressed up in dresses. Transgender.
That's not exactly what I said. What did you say? I said the reason I am so popular and I'm so famous is that there's a large contingent of men who don't want to wear makeup, who still want to make money, go to the gym, be strong, drive a fast car, be traditionally masculine, and don't want to be shamed for that, and they don't want to be called toxic for that. That is the reason I'm so massively famous. That is what I said.
What do you think of transgender people?
That's nothing to do with me. I'm not transgender, and I don't understand the issue like they do.
Are you transphobic? Do you consider yourself that?
Transphobic? What? Afraid?
Well, it kind of, yeah.
I don't live in fear, my friend. I have no problem.
Do you have a dislike of transgender people?
I don't know any transgender people.
Do you have a dislike of what they stand for, what they are?
No. Why would I?
I don't know.
That's not my issue. That's not my issue. And that's actually quite interesting because when I was attacked, a lot of these...
Why would he give a fuck? Like, if I was to say, like... I will say that is like a 100% W response from that is a Tate W. As a certified Tate W response. That is exactly what he should have said in that situation. I would have, if I was in my right mind in that same situation, I would want to say the same thing.
stupid articles like BuzzFeed because it's ridiculous. That first point proves anyone with a brain knows that that's garbage.
Yeah, it is.
When they attacked me, they lump a whole bunch of things in together. They say misogynistic, racist, transphobic. They just put them all together at random. I'm mixed race.
By the way,
I don't know where they get these. They just get these buzzwords and put them in a sentence.
By the way, I completely agree.
It's crazy.
And I've had the same thing done to me.
Okay,
and I'm not calling you anything. I'm asking you what
Piers has had this same shit happen to him. I've watched not watched articles. I've read articles and seen videos of him talking about this subject too.
Personally believe you are.
It's not an issue I discuss. What I do discuss is that...
So you support transgender people?
I support individual liberty. I'm a libertarian.
Yeah, so you support transgender people?
Sure. Sure. Why not?
Exactly, yeah.
But my point is, as a whole...
So there was a person in chat, and I want to respond to this comment, just because obviously it's, you know, I think this is going to be something that people might bring up or might say, and I think I'm just going to respond to it right now, is that somebody said in chat, I feel like you're going to lose some fans after the stream, my man. I think that if I will lose fans from giving somebody a fair shake and listening to what they say and being actually balanced about it, fuck them. Because I don't think, have I been fair? I think I have been extremely fair about this. I have shit on Andrew. I've shit on Piers based off of what they're saying. I think I have been as fair as I can possibly be. And being fair doesn't mean just shitting on the person regardless. No, I will not just... good riddance. If somebody wants me to just categorically demonize every single thing that a person says and throw out any sense of critical thinking or nuance, good fucking riddance. It's the same reason why I said the original cut version of this interview made Andrew Tate look absolutely fucking awful, and it did. And I think that he didn't do a really good job defending himself in those situations. But there are other parts of this 1 hour interview where he does do a good job defending himself, and this instance is one of them. If this is upsetting for you, that's too bad. I hate Tate and I think you're being fair. People saying I left Lamau. It's okay, man. Yeah, yeah, it's totally fine. All I'm saying is that no, I'm not an advocate for Andrew Tate. I think that there's a lot of things he said I think are very bad, and I think that you could say that these things have lacked context, but I do think that overall he has probably contributed to more negativity towards women than he needed to. I absolutely think so.
You're saying that I'm saying I don't want to see men in dresses. I'm saying no.
You support gay people?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm saying
I hate that kind of a question. That's the kind of question like, do you beat your wife? Are you a racist? Do you have problems with black people? I hate the questions because it puts the question in the mind of the viewer. It's kind of like it's patronizing and bad. I hate those questions. They're very, very bad. Yeah, are you a racist?
A large contingent of men in the world who like the idea of the traditional masculine view of the world, who feel happy when they watch 80s action heroes with big muscles and they run around, and there's nothing toxically masculine about having a fast car and a beautiful girl.
I think I've watched First Blood how many times? Like probably like fucking 50 times. Like, I mean, abso-fucking-lutely, man. Yeah.
Friend and making a bunch of money and
nothing at all.
Absolutely, and those are the people who are my fans.
But the problem is, okay, I'm going to interrupt you just to say this. No.
Okay, but you're saying that I have a problem with men in dresses. I'm saying no. The people who watch my content.
Asked you that question. You've answered.
Yeah, but the people who watch my content don't want to see men in dresses. Clearly, I don't wear a dress. That's the point I'm making.
That's not why they're watching your content.
No,
I find that to be a very bad argument. I think that's weird because men in dresses and stuff like that. I don't like this. I think this is a weird way of putting it. It's like, it's one thing to say that that's not the kind of stuff that you like, and it's another thing to kind of put it down. I think it's totally fine if you just want to watch action movies, and it's totally fine if you want to wear a dress. And I think it's totally fine to not want to do either one of them.
Wearing a dress?
No, but that's the point I'm making. That's the point I was making. There's a large contingent of men who are not interested in the things that perhaps the YouTube algorithm's trying to feed them.
I think there are lots of... look, when you support masculinity and masculine traits...
So what Andrew Tate just implied is that the YouTube algorithm is trying to feed them men in dresses intentionally, right? This is what he's saying that the algorithm is weaponized to do that. He's implying that. He's not directly saying that, and, you know, if he could say that that's not what he meant and kind of have a good argument that's not what he meant, but I think that is kind of what he meant.
I'm with you, right?
Okay, so you agree a man should protect and provide for a woman?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you agree if you were walking down the street with a woman, you'd be responsible with her safety?
Yeah.
Cool, absolutely. So if that woman wanted to walk alone at
I don't
night,
think I have authority over the woman as we do that.
Okay, so let me ask you another question, Piers, because we are professionals. Let's say your woman decided she wanted to take a nice little walk through the south side of Chicago at 2 a.m., and she wanted you to go with her, and you were responsible for fighting and dying on the spot if she was attacked. Don't you think you would say to her, no, we're not going out right now, it's not safe?
Yes.
Okay, so you'd have authority to make the decision. So
no, I wouldn't.
So
I would say, I don't think you should. If she decides to, it's her own volition.
Well, if she decides, you're not going to stop her.
I have no power to stop her.
Completely.
But you think you do.
No, I don't think I have power to stop her.
You clearly do.
No, I think I have power to make the decision.
I don't know why Piers is trying to lead that. Yeah, I don't know why he's trying to lead that into, like, but you think you do. Yeah, it's... Tate's implying it? I don't know. I don't really think... Was he implying it there? I don't really think so. I mean, you could make the argument... Like, you could make the argument that, yes, he's implying it if you look at the context of, like, other things that he's said in the past. But I think if you look at the context of this interview, he's not.
I think, no, that's not sensible.
So if you have the power to make the decision, you have the power to stop her.
No, because...
that's where we differ. That's why I think it's interesting about you. I don't think you...
This is dog shit. Like, this is absolute dog shit. Like, I hope Andrew Tate fucking interrupts him here. And this is the kind of stuff where it might seem like, oh, it's good to be calm and composed and to do this kind of stuff. I totally fucking disagree with that. I think that if somebody cuts you off, rephrases what you said in a complete fucking 180 behind what you said before, that is absolute dog shit, and you need to assert yourself. I think this is not only a masculine thing, but this is just something that you should do. And let's be honest, if Piers did this to fucking, I don't care, I used Alex Jones as an example, but if Piers Morgan did that to Barack Obama wouldn't let that fly either. Okay, like, nobody who's very good at presenting themselves and being in the public eye would let this happen.
Really think through what you're saying.
I think through what I'm saying so carefully.
Yeah, but Andrew, what you've literally just said is that you have the power to stop her.
No, I said I don't have the power to stop her. I'm not going to lock her in the room. I'm saying that...
So she wants to go outside, but you think you do?
No, I don't think I have power to stop her.
You clearly do.
No, I think I have power to make the decision. I think, no, that's not sensible.
So if you have the power to make the decision, you have the power to stop her.
No, because...
that's where we differ. And that's why I think it's interesting about you. I don't think you really think through.
This is again a semantics thing. Making the decision that it's not that's not something you should do. Like, somebody can make a decision that they don't want to wear a seatbelt, but they still have to wear a seatbelt. Or they can make a decision that they don't like wearing seatbelts, but they continue wearing seatbelts because they're the law. Like, I find that this is a weird way of having a conversation. It's a poor use of the language, yeah. I'm just as confused. Yeah, exactly.
Through what you're saying.
I think through what I'm saying so carefully.
Yeah, but Andrew,
Piers,
what you've literally just said is that you have the power to stop her.
No, I said I don't have the power to stop her. I'm not going to lock her in the room. I'm saying that...
So if she wants to go on her own...
Then she's going to go.
Then... But you don't have authority to stop her.
Okay, but as a couple, if we're going to sit there and decide if we're going to take this...
You asked me, would I feel a sense of responsibility for her safety? Absolutely.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
So let me finish,
Piers.
Piers.
Would I have the power or authority to stop her doing it? No.
No, of course not. So let me finish, Piers. You're not going to stop her walking out the hotel. Of course, it's her decision. She's a sovereign individual. My point is that usually in a couple, you sit there as a team and you discuss, and perhaps on certain issues, the woman will know more about X and she'll decide X, and the man might know more about Y and he'll decide Y. So I'm saying if we're as a couple and we're sitting there and deciding, as a couple, as a team, and she says she wants to take this late night stroll, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to veto this one. I'm going to call veto.
Do you believe
because it's dangerous,
right,
which to a degree would give me, in that particular scenario, a degree of authority. If she said, I don't want to listen to you, Andrew.
It doesn't give you authority.
If she says, I don't want to listen to you, Andrew, I want to...
Well, no. That doesn't... I think it does give you authority. If she is ceding the authority to you, then it does give you authority. Yeah, this is mind-numbing. Yeah, I find that, like, this is just, like, this is word play. There's a lot of word play with this. It's just, I don't think that Andrew Tate is necessarily in the wrong here. I think this entire conversation is, like, this whole thing is like, stupid. Because Piers is putting words in his mouth. Andrew Tate is saying that's not what he means. It's just weird.
Go on that walk, then what can I do? Say, well, then
you don't have authority.
Then I wish you the best, my love.
Then you don't have authority.
Cool. Then it's a semantic argument.
Not really.
I think
it's the complete opposite of what you said you had, which was authority.
No problem, Piers. No problem. But I think we actually
about
the authority. I think that whenever you're in a relationship with somebody else, part of being in a relationship is ceding some degree of authority over to that other person, whether for that other person to, again, make decisions on how you interact with the opposite sex, for that person to sometimes make financial decisions with you whenever you're married because your funds are connected. You clearly do cede authority to that other person, but the way that that authority is exercised is what's in question. And again, how fucking nuanced is that? Like, it's like, again, it's just like these little fucking granular points that people are getting into and trying to fucking argue about. To be realistic, number of national women stupid enough to put herself in danger like that they're depicting, it's all theoretically fake. Well, I think that there are instances where guys feel like a girl is going to go to like a party or something like that. How many times you've ever had like a girlfriend to go to a party or do something that you felt like might be unsafe for her to do? I know my parents have felt that way with me whenever I've, gone out to, I didn't necessarily tell my mom that, we're going to go to Eric's drug dealer's house for the New Year's Eve party. I think there are many times where this would happen. Yeah, of course.
What do you believe about depression? Do you believe depression is a real thing?
I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't believe depression as a clinical disease is real, no.
Really?
Correct.
You don't believe people can be clinically depressed?
I think PTSD is very real. Unfortunately, I have some friends who suffer from that. I know that feeling depressed is real.
I think that's dumb, but okay, we'll listen to what it says.
I believe that the number one power you have against these things are trying to take control of your own mind and affecting your own life. I believe that it's not healthy.
I think that is to a degree true. There are chemical imbalances in somebody's brain and in people's brains, and sometimes that holds them back. But I do think that you have to work with, it's many times with a lot of this kind of stuff, and this is like what my experience is, and this is, I'm not a doctor, by the way, so, I'm not going to state that this is true, but what I've seen in my experience is that even if you do take certain types of medicine or things like that, it has to also come with a willingness to change and a effort to change a mindset. It has to be both.
To hand over all your power and believe that depression is an outside disease that you can't affect. I know that when I've had difficult periods...
I don't know about that. I think that there are, and again, I am not a scientist, but my understanding on the science is that some depression is caused from literal chemical imbalances in the brain. Now, you can make the argument that those chemical imbalances can be fixed in natural ways, but you can also say that, I don't know that. Bullshit? I don't know if it's bullshit. I feel like the human brain is pretty fucking complex. I would assume that it's true, actually.
In my life, and also many of my friends, like I've said, suffer from PTSD and been through terrible things. I've lived a very difficult life, and I know people who have. That the things that made them feel better is when they woke up and said, you know what, I'm not going to allow this to damage me anymore. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to get up and I'm going to fight this as hard as I can.
And by the way, on that, I agree.
So we agree.
Right? My favorite speech is the Rocky Balboa one.
Okay, so then we agree. No, we do.
Here's where we don't agree.
Piers.
You don't... No, hang on. You got to let me interject when I don't agree with you, right? Where I don't agree with you is that there's no such thing as clinical depression. There absolutely is.
Well,
it's a proven scientific medical reality. There's a different argument about have we gone a bit too soft, right, in schools and all the rest of it. Absolutely. Yeah. Do I think
this is something that, as I said, I am not a scientist. I got a C in chemistry, okay? There's a reason why I didn't go around and talk a whole lot about the COVID vaccine and COVID in general whenever it happened. I don't fucking know anything about this shit, right? I think that it's plausible to assume that there are things that could be affected in the brain that are chemical imbalances. I think it just makes sense.
Will moan and whine too much about their lot in life? Definitely.
Okay.
Are we a victimhood society? 100%.
Okay.
Is there such a thing as clinical depression? Absolutely.
So
and my argument is that if you actually bracket everybody who's not clinically depressed...
I think one problem with fucking society is we have two people up here that aren't scientists that are debating whether something that is clinical, a.k.a. scientifically backed, is real or not. Seems a little fucking stupid to me.
Doesn't have the genuine medical condition, then actually if millions of people are deemed to have depression, the ones who really need the help don't get it. Well, that's my point.
Well, that I would agree with. You're right. I think it's certainly an overused term.
But you don't accept there is such a thing as clinical depression.
No, I don't.
And that to me is a damaging view.
Okay. Well, let me explain why. If someone comes to me and says I'm clinically depressed or I feel very, very sad, I would say the first thing you need to do is stop accepting the identity of a clinically depressed person. Stop accepting you have no control over this. And what you need to do is stop identifying that way, and let's work together to try and fight against it.
But there isn't an eminent doctor.
I think that to a certain degree, there are people that are able to work against it to an extent. Because it's probably like, it's the percentage and how much harder or easier it could be to work against it if you have the drugs. But again, now it's 3 people talking about clinical diagnoses that don't fucking know anything about them, and not just 2. So I don't really know this, but I'm just going off of what I think common sense is. Yeah, it's a bell curve situation. Yeah.
Doctor in the world who would tell you there is no such thing as clinical depression. Who would not tell you that some people it's simply beyond their control.
Johann Hari wrote a book saying exactly that, my friend.
He's not an eminent doctor.
No, but
he's a journalist.
I said depression wasn't real long ago and was attacked for it. Then Johann Hari wrote a book which
What's
actually...
What's it got to do with Johann Hari?
Well, I think that saying that depression isn't real is very different than saying that clinical depression isn't real. I think these two things are very different.
Because he wrote a book proving me right. Most people...
Johann Hari's a journalist.
Sure. And my point is that a lot of people who are clinically...
Well, not sure. I mean, you can't fucking cite somebody who has no expertise in the field whenever you're talking of... It's... Bro, like, this is crazy. This is not a very good source, all right?
Depressed are suffering with something in their life, and if you fix the problem in their life, perhaps they won't feel depressed anymore. That's not a disease.
Yeah, but Andrew...
That's situational.
Andrew, you're simply wrong.
If that's what you believe, Piers,
it's what I believe.
I don't believe in things that take power away.
There is not an eminent doctor.
What, do you believe in cancer? I mean, do you believe in dying? I mean, that's a very... This is such a terrible thing to say. It's just... I mean, come on.
In the world,
Piers
would agree with it.
Piers,
do you think you know more than doctors?
I can't become clinically depressed.
Why do you know?
Because I don't believe in it. I can't be haunted by a ghost if I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, that's like saying I'm never going to die because I don't believe in it. It's ridiculous.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Yep, there you go.
Perhaps.
Good
but
point.
It allows me to live a life where I feel happy and
but here's
content
where you
within
see,
myself.
This is that little area where you lose me.
No, I don't lose you.
You are,
because
Piers, somebody with your following says
the thousands of people who have emailed me saying my doctor told me I was clinically depressed and it's a disease that I have got in my brain and I can't be fixed. And I started listening to you and I realized that that's not the case and I can fix my own life and you're the only person who has ever helped me.
Oh, Andrew.
Thousands.
I think that's probably true. And I am of the mindset that I think, again, not a medical expert, think that things like depression and these types of things are probably overly prescribed. And I think that a lot of times there are doctors that make money on prescriptions in certain circumstances, and it makes me very wary about taking medicine and stuff like that, and if it's necessary or not. So I think that this is probably the case.
Of people have emailed me that exact email.
If you think you are single-handedly curing people of clinical depression, you are living in cloud cuckoo land.
I am reading the email.
I think that there are a lot of ways. I don't know if this is more fucking scientific shit. I'm not very comfortable talking about this like extensively, but I don't know if clinical depression is something that is exclusively chemical, is a chemical imbalance. I don't know if somebody can be clinically depressed just by their symptoms and not by a like a fucking blood test or some sort of like chemical test or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Of people who I have cured of clinical depression.
You're reading emails from people who have believed you when you say there isn't such a thing, and they've probably never been diagnosed clinically depressed. They just want to go along with what Andrew Tate says.
I don't know about that. I think that's a bit much for him to say. I think it's a little bit unfair for him to say that all the people emailing Andrew Tate privately are only doing so because they're lying about talking to a doctor about being diagnosed with clinical depression. I think this is a weird argument.
I think so.
I think your view of that view is dangerous.
I respect that you think my view is dangerous, and I respect you have the right to view that, to think that. I think that clinical depression, I actually agree with you, is massively overdiagnosed. I've already said that PTSD is a very real thing. I've already said...
hang on.
Okay.
Again, you're misquoting me. I did not say clinical depression is massively overdiagnosed. I said that people who claim to be depressed but don't have clinical depression, I think that is massively overblown, right? In other words, there are a lot of people who just have a bad day and declare, I've got depression. Yeah. And I say, well, have you been to a doctor? Have you been clinically diagnosed?
Well, there's a lot of people that have depression because they don't have a job. Like, for example, or they have depression because they, their girlfriend broke up with them or something like that. And maybe this isn't necessarily a chemical imbalance. And this is, again, you're using a lot of, is this the capital D or the lowercase d depression? Is this the, fucking medical term? Is this the clinical chemical imbalance in your brain term? Or is just somebody feeling like shit? You see kind of what I'm saying?
If you have, and you have clinical depression, that's one thing. But if you haven't, we could probably work on some mental strength and resilience skills with you. But a clinically depressed person has an absolutely proven medical condition that is beyond their control.
Not according to me and many others, my friend.
Well, look, what do you know about it, honestly?
That's a very good... That's a very good fucking thing to say. Very good point, yes. What the fuck do you know about it? Yes, honestly, come on. I think that the truth is, like, there are a lot of times where even a person with clinical depression can take steps to improve their life that will improve their state of depression. Even if they could still have depression after that, there are still things that they can do to improve themselves on a personal level as well. It's not like you just take the magic pills and it goes away.
I know.
You're not a doctor, are you? Not trained, are you?
I'm not a doctor.
You're not a psychiatrist. You're none of those things.
Sure.
You're a guy on the make. He's done very well for himself.
And I think that Piers is right with this point. I think he's absolutely right with this point. And for Andrew Tate to say that certain illnesses are not real without having any sort of medical background, I think that this is irresponsible and wrong.
Spouting stuff off, much of which I agree with, as you've seen in the interview. But some of which is ludicrous, and that's one of them.
It's not ludicrous.
It is.
It's not.
If you said to me, we're in a victimhood society, it's got to stop, I'm with you.
Okay.
But the moment you try and deny clinical depression...
I believe feeling depressed is real. I do not believe it's a disease that you catch from the sky and you cannot affect. I believe that no matter what happens, I believe you have control of your own mind and you can fight against it. I believe if you change your circumstance...
I don't know why he's using depression as this, because you can use any other mental disorder like dementia, or you could use another mental disorder like schizophrenia or, borderline personality disorder. And any of these other things, I feel like if you asked Andrew Tate, is schizophrenia real? He would say yes. Is dementia real? He would say yes. Is a lot of these other mental problems that people have real? And he would probably say yes, especially if they're very powerful, they're very powerful effects, like dementia, for example. So I find that this is just I think depression is like unique in this, in a way that any other mental illness, he would probably not agree with this on. It's like depression is the only thing that you can overcome with your mind only. Like, it sounds like bullshit to me. False equivalence. I don't know if it is a false equivalence. You think schizophrenia and depression, like, aren't they both basically like just imbalances in your brain? Like, I don't really know the details with this kind of stuff. I have no idea. But I think that this is something that, like, yes. Not necessarily. It's probably very... Let's be honest, guys. Nobody fucking knows. All right, all I'm saying is that there are plenty of fucking mental problems that people have that are very well fucking established, that the way of solving this mental problem is through medication, and in some cases it is unsolvable. I think that it is unreasonable to assume that depression never falls into that category. I think that's completely fucking fair for me to say that. Totally fucking fair for me to say that.
In your life, you may feel different. I'll give you a quick example. I had a guy who emailed me saying he was clinically depressed and he was going to kill himself. I obviously am not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor. I told him, because I replied to my emails. I said, have you been to a psychiatrist? He said, yes, I'm clinically depressed. I've been on these pills, this amount of time. I'm on antidepressants, it doesn't work. I said, I don't know what to say to you besides this. And he said he lost his girlfriend, that's why he became clinically depressed. I said, listen, go to the gym, get a six-pack first. Once you've got a six-pack, email me again. If you still feel like killing yourself, I don't know what else to say to you, but I'd say, strong body is a strong mind, go train. He went, he started sending me progress pictures, emailing me him getting in better shape, and eventually got a six-pack. He's now a professional bodybuilder. And he said, I can't believe I was considering that. I feel so much better, etc. The doctor
So he means a six-pack, not a six-pack of beer. He means a six-pack like abs.
Telling him he was clinically depressed and couldn't cure it. He started taking control of his own life, and now he felt better. Now, I'm not saying it's the case for everybody.
No.
I'm just saying.
Here's my question, though.
No, of course, right. You can't say that's the case for everybody, and that's the whole reason why people are criticizing you saying it's not real in the first place, is that you can't say that's the case for everybody, but you are saying that that's the case for everybody by saying that it's not real. So it's a little bit of fucking doublespeak here. Because I think that he's totally fucking right. I think that a lot of guys, if you had the physique of Z's or, you know, like some fucking, like, think of whichever guy you think looks really fucking good. You know, whether it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, like someone like Z's, like Brad Pitt in fucking Fight Club, something like that. If you look that way, I think that probably your outlook on life is going to be better because the odds are you're going to get treated better by women. You're going to have people respect you more because that's just how people are. People are fucking animals, and being a strong animal is better than being a weak one. So I think that's absolutely true. It's absolutely true that this will, you know, working out, and like I have a friend, Jeff. Jeff is a really good example of this being the case.
You've seen the guy's medical records?
Yeah. Of course not. I just told you the story.
So you're just taking his word for it?
Oh, I am taking the word of a man who emailed me with a bunch of medication in specific doses.
You're denying proven science because one guy writes to you who you help and you've not seen any evidence he ever had clinical depression diagnosed.
I'm denying the idea that...
And on the back of it, you go on your rants in public to tens of millions of people denying something because this guy writes to you and says he had it and you cured him.
Piers has got him on this one. I've got to say, Piers is he's got him on this one. Like this is such a dumb hill to die on. I don't understand why he's doing it.
And I think that's a dangerous mindset, Andrew.
That's fine.
And that's where you don't have a responsible view of your influence over
Disagree.
people.
It's very responsible because I'm saving people's lives.
And also somebody said in chat, by the way, I want to mention, brain works better on regular exercise, clinically proven, just like medication is clinically proven. I think that you're right. Like, if you were to ask me on a multiple choice or like a true-false thing, I would put true for that. I'm very, like 90% sure that's true, but I'm not 100. That's right, yeah.
Disagree that if you feel depressed, I disagree that you cannot affect it and change your life and take control and fix yourself and feel happier. I disagree with that.
Do you think
I refuse to accept that there are people out there who cannot become happy, contented individuals. I refuse to accept we live in a world where God has created people who, no matter how hard they work and how good their life becomes, can't be happy. I don't accept that. I
think that seems like cope. I mean, you can't accept that, but you can accept that children are born with their organs outside their body, because that happens too. I feel like that's a lot harder to accept than somebody is depressed. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of fucking horrors of the world that are much harder to accept than somebody not being able to be happy.
That the universe is a very giving place and that God loves all of us. And if you try your best and you work hard, you can become a better person. And I also will argue with you, and I'll counter the point that you sitting here on your platform telling people they have clinical depression, there's nothing they can do about it, is far more dangerous.
No, he didn't. Yeah, I don't think Piers said. I think defaulting and deferring to clinical fucking science, and if clinical science says it, this is a false equivalency. That Andrew Tate saying it's not real and Piers Morgan saying it is real are the same thing. Yeah, this is a complete false equivalency. This is a very bad Uno reverse card.
Okay, well then, if they have clinical depression...
Why do you misquote me?
No, because you're saying...
You hate being misquoted.
No, you're saying if people have clinical depression...
I never said there's nothing to do about it. They go to a doctor and they get diagnosed and they get help.
Then I would argue the point that if
it's
somebody...
the complete opposite of what you just said I said.
I would argue the point that if somebody has depression of any kind, whether it's clinical, whether it exists or not, whether they feel depressed or not, whatever, that taking control of their life, taking personal responsibility and working hard is always going to be the positive, best thing they can possibly do for their life going forward.
How positive is it?
I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's generally true. Yeah, it's better to work out and make positive effects in your life more than not. Even if you have something wrong with you. Yeah, of course. Sure. Is that a no-shit situation? I do think that there are a lot of people out there who feel like, oh, I'm depressed, I have depression, and so they don't try to make an effort. I've seen people do this before. And it's the same thing with, like, I know my mom did this whenever she was addicted to cigarettes. Well, I'm addicted. It's like, well, okay, now what? So, yeah, I think it happens.
So sitting here saying, I don't believe in clinical depression, you don't believe in depression. No, I don't. I believe that people can take control and fight against things. Right. I believe in personal sovereignty.
Right. Fine.
Good. So we agree.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Piers, you're on my side, afraid of being cancelled along with me.
As I said to you from the start,
that's all
I agree with a lot of what you say.
Completely. So
but I'm taking you to task over the stuff I don't agree with.
Sure.
And I'm just not sure you understand why it's wrong, which is in itself quite revealing. Let me talk to you about Alex. Let me talk to you about Alex Jones, right? Who I have a bit of history with. He tried to get me deported from the United States.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. What is your view of Alex Jones?
This is so fucking funny, given the context that I brought Alex Jones up as an example of somebody who completely shut Piers Morgan down. Yep. Holy shit.
I think that Alex Jones is a sovereign individual who, very much like the rabid left, deserves a chance to speak on his points of view. I think that the truth on issues is usually somewhere in the middle between two extremes. And
you think Sandy Hook was staged?
I don't know anything about Sandy Hook.
Really? You know he's just been sued by the families for millions and millions.
I have no idea.
You don't know anything about it?
I can guarantee you that Andrew Tate probably does know about it, but him saying I don't know about it is actually a 500 IQ answer. It's actually a 500 IQ answer because I don't want to fucking get involved with this shit. I don't know anything about the Sandy Hook. I don't know about that. I don't want to talk about it. That's it. Yeah, it's just like, who gives a fuck? Yeah, no comment.
So why would you support someone in public when you know nothing about the most infamous
When
thing
have I supported him in public?
You have supported him in public.
I've been on his podcast.
Yeah, but you said nice things about him.
I say nice things about lots of people.
What do you think of Alex Jones?
I said nice things about you, Piers.
That's fine. so you should. I'm a nice person.
So to sit and say that I've been on a podcast and I say nice things about him.
But you said you support.
Oh, I don't know. I think that saying nice things about people, this is kind of a weird thing, right? Because you have instances where you're saying nice things about somebody who is an asshole. And I think that, yes, obviously, whenever you say something nice about a person, Piers Morgan, I hope that we're not going in the direction of any time that you offer praise to a person in any capacity, this is an endorsement of all of that person's beliefs and statements and ideals. Because if you do that, I think you're not going to ever be able to praise anybody.
His right to speak about things like Sandy Hook?
I don't know Sandy Hook. I don't know. And
you know what it was?
It was a mass shooting.
Of school children.
Okay. But to sit and it's actually, no. Mass shooting.
Of school children.
Okay. But
was he about to say, okay, cool? I don't know. I feel like he stopped himself. He's like, wait, that's not what to say right now. Yeah.
To sit and it's actually, no, let's stop for a second. Please don't interrupt me. Here's why.
Maybe not.
I know why you're good at your job. First, you interrupt people a lot, which is good. It's a good skill,
actually,
and then there you go. Prove me right.
But here's exactly
and the timing's good.
Here's exactly what I do. I only interrupt people like you when you either refuse to answer the question or answer a completely different one.
Sure.
And I want to remind you of what the question was.
Fair enough.
Or when you misquote me back, which you've done repeatedly through the interview, where you say, "You see, Piers, you agree with me," and the viewer who's
which, to be fair, Piers doesn't agree with him with the fucking clinical depression at all. He doesn't agree with him in any capacity. So Andrew Tate's saying, yeah, so you agree with me. It's like, no, fucking, it's the opposite. Yeah.
You watch him and go, no, he didn't.
Cool, no problem. The other thing you do is you try and set these traps like now. So you're saying
What's the trap you think I'm setting?
You're saying that I agree with every single point of view a man has.
I literally didn't say that.
You're saying, well, you support Alex Jones.
Why would you misquote me?
Because you're saying you support...
No, I think that it's very clear. I do think that Piers Morgan is clearly trying to play that game. Is that, you know, you've supported Alex Jones. What do you know about Sandy Hook? Are you okay supporting somebody who thinks that a mass shooting didn't happen? I think this is clearly, I mean, he's clearly building a house of cards here.
Poor Alex Jones, and you said you've been on his podcast, and he said this. I don't know
what do you think of Alex Jones?
I don't know everything he said.
What do you think of him?
I think on his podcast he was cordial. I think he was professional on his podcast. I've also done podcasts with rabid leftists and people who openly hate me.
Is it wrong?
I do a podcast circuit. Okay. So and I don't know everything he's ever said.
When somebody like
and I don't know what, so I don't know what you're trying to get me here because I did a podcast.
If you let me get a word in edgeways, I'll tell you.
It's a lame trick.
If you let me get a word,
I can see why Andrew Tate is pissed off, and I would be pissed off too, because it's very clear what Piers Morgan is doing. Yeah, he's being a dumbass with this. I don't like this. This is dumb.
Sure.
I will tell you.
Let's go.
Alex Jones said that Sandy Hook didn't happen. It was staged by actors.
Okay.
This compounded the appalling grief of the families of those poor 20 children who were gunned to pieces by a lunatic with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. They were already grief-stricken beyond belief, and this guy poured petrol onto that grief quite deliberately to make a huge amount of money from his InfoWars fake news bullshit. And as a result, a lot of the families have now sued him, and they've won, and he's going to have to pay back.
Piers still is pissed off about that interview. Fucking 10 years later, still fucking pissed about that interview.
Tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in damages to these families, and quite right, it won't do anything about the pain he caused them. Some of them actually had people turn up outside their houses with guns because Alex Jones had told them that these parents were making it all up. They were all staged actors. It was all run by the government. So I simply say to you, now I've told you that, what is...
I feel like this is an instance of who asked. Like, okay. All right, yeah. That was a big Alex L.
Your view of Alex Jones?
I don't see why any of that has to do with me. It's very interesting. I've done the guy's podcast. I
don't know. Yeah, I don't know why it's not hard to say, like, yeah, Alex had a huge L with that. It was really stupid for him to say that. There are certain things that I agree with him on, but that's not one of them. I don't think that this is a very hard middle ground to reach.
Well, he was professional and courteous to me. When I meet somebody and they show me respect, I show them back respect. That's what I do, as I did with you.
You respect him?
If somebody shows me respect, I show them respect back.
So if Adolf Hitler showed you respect, you'd respect him back?
That's a stupid question, Piers.
It's not. It's a logically defensive.
It is a stupid question. Of course he would respect Adolf Hitler, because the odds are, if Adolf Hitler is showing you respect, he's probably got a fucking, like, 5 guards behind him. They're going to shoot you if you don't show him respect, too. What the fuck do you expect?
Your argument.
No, if in 1931 I was walking through Germany and a man come up to me and said, sorry for bumping into you, I'd say, sorry, no problem, mate. I'd show respect back. I don't know, what are you trying to say? That I sanction the Holocaust?
You literally just said if somebody respects you, you respect them back.
I say if somebody shows me respect, I show respect back. That's a good way to go through life.
Whoever it is.
If somebody shows me respect and is courteous to me, I'm courteous back. Yes.
How can you respect somebody who caused such misery and pain to Sandy Hook?
I have no idea the specifics of the thing you're discussing. I don't understand any of it.
Well,
I don't know anything about it. You told me your version of events.
When did you go on the podcast?
I was on the podcast about four times in the last 4 years. I did one relatively recently.
So four times you went on Alex Jones's podcast.
Correct.
Promoting him, helping him make money.
I don't think it was promoting and helping him because...
Well, it's his podcast.
Oh, it's promoting him and helping him make money. Absolutely it is. And obviously, being an accessory to Alex Jones's content is beneficial to Alex Jones. It is also beneficial to Andrew Tate. It's mutually beneficial.
Well, yeah, but I've been on the podcasts of people who absolutely hate me. I've been on liberal left-wing podcasts. I've been on feminist podcasts.
Fine.
And no, you just
I think that you can also make the argument, and this is something I don't know if he's going to make this or not, is that if you want to, you're not going on the podcast for him, for Alex Jones. You're going on there for his listeners to get your message out there. So you can use it from that angle as well, is you don't have to respect or agree with the person who's on there, but you can say, well, I want to go on there to, get the message out there for something that I believe in. And it just completely sidesteps this whole, would you do the same thing to Hitler thing?
Saying I would like you to agree, perhaps we can agree on this point, that I'm not a feminist. I go on feminist podcasts. I do a podcast circuit.
You're not a feminist?
I don't know.
What do you think a feminist is?
Well, let's not change subject here, Piers. Stay on the subject.
You mentioned feminism.
Completely. But you're trying to get away from the point, because what you did is you're trying to say, because I did a podcast.
Well, it's a leftist. Like, he's not a leftist. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, he said he'd go on leftist podcasts. I feel like now we're going off on the feminist thing. Who gives a fuck about this?
I sanction all of this person's views. And I'm saying I do 5 podcasts a week.
I
do 5 podcasts a week, and I don't sanction 100% the views of any other person on the planet, because I'm an individual, and he has an individual views, as do you. So I don't know why you're trying to come at me with one of his views and pretend that's something to do with me.
Because it's a pretty big view.
No, but it's a lame trick, Piers, and you're better than this. So let's move on.
Would you?
It's lame, and let's move on.
Putin had a podcast, would you go on it?
Sure.
If
you would.
Wait,
right.
who?
It's lame, and let's move on.
If Putin had a podcast, would you go on it?
Vladimir Putin had a podcast.
Sure.
You would? Great. Okay, let me know what you're talking about.
If Vladimir Putin had a podcast, I'd go on it. If Joe Biden had a podcast, I'd go on it. If a feminist has a podcast, I'll go on it. If Piers Morgan has a podcast, I'll go on it.
That's a totally fair argument. Yeah, that's totally fair to say that. I think that it's completely okay to do that. Yeah, it's like somebody invite me on some podcast, even if I don't agree with them, I don't like them. I might go on there if I feel like this is beneficial, or, I want to reach their audience or talk to them about something, etc. Yeah, this is fine, because he's opportunistic. Well, it's not about being opportunistic is not always a bad thing. And I think that if you look at being opportunistic in a lot of other contexts, you would actually look at it as a good thing. Because if somebody said that, oh, well, I would want to go on to podcast to confront him directly about, the lies that he's talking about with Ukraine to his people, you wouldn't call that opportunistic. No, you wouldn't, but it still actually would be. So what you're really not criticizing, you're not criticizing the fact that he's being opportunistic, you're criticizing the way that he's going about doing it.
If Alex Jones, I don't see the point you're making. There's no point here. You're digging, but there's nothing to find.
Well, I'm not. I'm taking your position that if somebody shows you respect them.
I think that.
I'm saying there are lots of people in the world I do not respect. If Vladimir Putin showed me respect, I would not respect him.
That's your opinion. But
no, it's my view. What's your view?
Okay, that's your view. Well,
your view is a view is an opinion, isn't it?
Would.
You're sitting here, Piers, saying that I'm on Uncensored Show. And in your intro, you said that it's important that we don't have echo chambers and we have varying and that we have varying opinions.
Correct.
But then you're saying the people you don't like, you wouldn't go on their podcast.
No.
So you are a hypocrite.
No.
I will go on anybody's podcast and discuss any point.
No. Right.
Uncensored Show. And in your intro, you said that it's important that we don't have echo chambers and we have varying and that we have varying opinions.
Correct.
But then you're saying the people you don't like, you wouldn't go on their podcast.
No.
So you are a hypocrite.
No.
I will go on anybody's podcast and discuss any point.
I'm trying to think, because yes, at a face value, this does make Piers Morgan look really bad, and I think this is a Tate W. I would say so in general. I'm trying to think of the nuance between going on somebody's podcast versus censoring them is that much different, because I think that what Piers is implying is that Andrew Tate should not associate with Alex Jones. And I think that in implying that Andrew Tate should not associate with Alex Jones, one could assume that Piers Morgan would also think that nobody else should associate with Alex Jones, which is its own form of censorship in itself. So it's very hard to say whether this is like an actual hypocrisy or not, but it's very close to it. Do you see what I'm saying? Piers is playing guilt by association. Yes. He's saying about him not knowing about Senator Hook is like Putin not knowing about invading Ukraine. Oh, yeah, but this isn't getting anywhere. Yeah, I don't think it really is. I feel like Piers Morgan is trying to get Andrew Tate to say that Alex Jones is a bad guy And I think Andrew Tate either doesn't know anything about the Sandy Hook thing or doesn't care or doesn't want to talk about it.
I don't think you understand what censorship means, do you? Like a lot of words we've had problems with today.
Okay,
You're just saying
What do you think censorship means?
No, but the point I'm trying to make here.
Hang on. What do you think censorship means?
Don't hide from the fact that you're saying you will only do podcasts with people you like.
Why do you think that's censorship?
No, that's your prerogative. My prerogative is I'll just
do with censorship.
Well, no, it's not about people that you like. I think that thinking that something is a mass shooting, like if you were to ask Piers Morgan, this is the thing, do you think anybody should go on Alex Jones's show or they should be able to go on his show? He would probably say no. Like, I know that do you think they should? I think he would definitely say no for. Do you think they should be able to? He probably wouldn't, but maybe he would. I don't know.
I'll discuss opinions with anybody, and I've done hard left-wing. Why are you not asking me about the podcast I've done for the people who are hard liberal left-wing?
By the way, I don't care whether they're left or right.
Okay.
Extremists, to me, are all nuts, right?
Then we agree.
Yes.
So, perfect.
Good.
Next subject.
I think you could easily make the argument that extremists are... Whose face? Extremists are bad, and that's why it's important to reach their audience to try to bring those people back to reality. Like, I'm surprised Andrew Tate isn't even trying to make that argument.
All right, here's my next subject. It's a very serious case here.
Jesus. And before you move on, sorry, Piers, but before you move on, I do find it kind of disingenuous. And I know we're on a show, and I don't have a personal problem with you, but it is kind of disingenuous to try and sit here and lump me in with some school shooting. That's nothing to do with me. That's nothing to do with me.
It's very good for him to call that out. Very fucking good for him to call that out. Like, this is the kind of shit that 100% absolutely call this out and make it known that that's exactly what he was doing.
On any level.
Let me respond.
On any level.
Let me explain. Like you just said, you've been on this podcast 4 times.
In 4 years.
Since he said the whole thing was staged.
I don't know when he said
it. And I think the fact that a smart guy like you wants me to believe you had no idea that Alex Jones, who's been in the news now for the last 2 years for being sued by these families for the most heinous thing imaginable of pouring petrol onto their grief by claiming that shooting was staged. The fact that you're pretending you didn't know about any of that.
It's not about pretending
and you've been on his podcast 4 times.
So he thinks that Andrew Tate is lying, and he's like, no, you don't get to play the I had no idea about it card. We're going to fucking argue about this right now.
Supporting him and making him money, so damn right I'm going to call you out on it.
When I do a podcast, if you think I spend time analyzing the point of view of that person and everything they've ever said
you should.
For years beforehand.
It's not years, it was minutes in most cases.
Years and years.
When did you last go on this? When did you last go on his podcast?
You trying to lump me in and attack me for a person who's...
Well, it's also, I mean, it's fair to keep in mind that is it true that Alex Jones did go back and say that the Sandy Hook thing did happen and that it was a mistake for him to have said that? Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, because it's like, I remember I did the video about it, and then people, he was forced to say it. They literally forced him to say it. Kind of any of it. Yeah, I don't know. He said in court, when court forced him to, whether, of course, yeah, no, I don't know. This is a weird situation. So it's like, well, what I'm trying to think is like, is the defense of Alex Jones saying that he made a mistake saying that, is that a fair defense for Andrew Tate to potentially take? I guess maybe not. I don't know.
Podcasts I do, having a view is absolutely childish because I've done a bunch of podcasts with people.
You would do a podcast.
I've done a bunch of podcasts with people who are advocating for things that I do not agree with on every single level. In fact, most of my podcasts are me disagreeing with people. So it's completely crazy that you're trying to lump me in with that. That's cheap. That's cheap.
You are completely misconstruing the point of what I'm saying. I think deliberately.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that the argument that you shouldn't be allowed to go on people's podcasts that do bad stuff or say bad stuff is not very good. I've always believed in talking to people regardless of whether you agree with them or not. And I think that it's also a personal decision, and it's valid one way or another. And I think it's extremely valid to say, I don't want to talk to this person because I don't want to give them a platform. I don't want to help them. I don't agree with what they're saying at all. I think it's totally fucking fine for you to say that. And I think it's also totally fucking fine for you to say, I do want to talk to this person because I disagree with them and because I want to talk about this issue, or that we have some common ground that we can make people's lives better with aside from this. Like, there's a lot of people, for example, I disagree with on many things, but, you know, other things I don't. I think a good example of this is the whole Ted Cruz thing, where I was going to talk to Ted Cruz about the loot boxes. Now, I don't agree with Ted Cruz about abortion and a number of other things, but if I can get him on my side with video game loot boxes, then I'm happy. And it doesn't mean that I'm giving an approval to everything else that he's saying. I'm just saying that this is something that I could work together with somebody on to do a good for the world with. And I think that's a positive force regardless of who's doing it. And I think this is, both of those arguments I think are completely fair, but I don't think that it's fair to take your side of that argument and then force other people to agree with it.
No, what you're trying is a cheap trick. And I'm just making it clear to the audience.
It's not a cheap trick. I'm just curious where your moral line is.
It's a cheap trick.
Where's your moral line?
I disagree with the points of view with the majority of the people I do podcasts with. So it's a very cheap trick you're trying here. So
when people invent vile things to make themselves rich off the back of families of little kids who've been blown to pieces.
Piers fucking hates Alex Jones. I did not know that it was this bad. I had no idea. Like, yeah, this is fucking crazy. It's bad. Give me 1 second. Actually, I have to respond to something.
Is with a machine gun or a semi-automatic version of a machine gun.
Okay, here we go.
I think that is actually a line I wouldn't cross. I wouldn't be happy to go on someone's podcast when they've been responsible for doing that. It's not about political views or differences of opinion over facts. It's about somebody deliberately inventing a pack of lies to compound the grief of families. And I'm curious, you don't think you have any need to go down any kind of moral quandary about people like that before you continue to allow them to use you for their own promotion?
He didn't use me. He didn't use me for
Why does he have you on the podcast?
Because we disagreed and discussed points like we're doing with you right now.
Did you call him out on that?
Are you using me? We didn't discuss that.
I'm not using you. I'm giving you a platform most people aren't giving you right now to show the world who you really are.
Fantastic.
I think that it's fair to say that Piers is helping Andrew Tate because obviously he's giving Andrew Tate a platform, and I think that's fair. I think that Piers has been unfair in many regards with this, but I think that he has been more fair than unfair. And so I think he is helping him, but he is also using Andrew Tate because he knows this interview will get a lot of traction. So it's a little bit of both.
Fantastic. So neither of us are using each other. I'm here on your show.
The opposite. You're both using each other, in my opinion.
I'm providing you with content. You're giving me a platform. And nobody's using each other. It's mutual. We don't agree on a whole bunch of issues.
It's fine.
And here we are.
I think we've had a robust exchange.
Yeah, just like I've done on nearly every other podcast. And if someone were to come and say to me in the future, there's something, heaven forbid, there's a skeleton in your closet, and someone were to come to me and say, you were on Piers Morgan's show, did you know he's X or he's done X? I would say that's absolutely nothing to do with me.
Right. But I
make the same point protecting you. I don't know what you do. I don't know your personal life.
I can guarantee one thing. I will not be inventing stories about the families of kids.
I hope not. I hope you're a righteous person. But I don't know.
I'm not claiming to be a righteous person.
I don't know.
I'm just saying that I just think it's interesting that you have no...
Bro.
What the fuck does this have to do with anything? Oh my God, bro. Like, what is this? Holy shit. What is this? Like, oh my God. Why? Like, who gives a fuck, man? Like, he already got convicted. He said it happened. It's fucking over.
Moral compulsion about going on people.
It's not about moral compulsions. It's about, I don't know what you do, Piers. You could have a bunch of skeletons in your closet, my friend. I don't have a clue. I'm here on your TV show.
I'm sure we all have lots of skeletons. Let me ask you this. Interesting about the feminism thing.
Sure.
Do you identify as a feminist?
I think that women and men are fantastic. Both of us are fantastic. I think women reproduce.
I think that Andrew Tate answer, straight up, bro, that is some fucking Donald Trump shit. Men and women, listen, I'll tell you, they're both fantastic. You know, women, yeah, this is 100% a Donald Trump response, man.
I think women need to be respected, protected, provided for. I think that modern feminism is kind of hard for me to even truly understand.
What do you think it means? What is feminism?
I think that the idea of feminism is that men and women are equal under the law.
And do you believe that?
Completely.
We should be treated completely equal.
Yeah, but we are equal under the law. Wouldn't you agree?
Not really. I think there are still some issues in the world where, I mean, certainly in workplace, the gender pay gap remains.
Well, I mean, there are many issues in the world where women are absolutely not equal. I think that in general, obviously, men and women generally have the same rights. There are some exceptions, but I think those exceptions go both ways. For every abortion, there's also child support and child custody.
They're not treated equally in most cases, women?
Well, that can be discussed, the gender pay gap. I think that's already been discussed at length. I think that there's actually...
You think women should go to work?
I think women should work completely.
You do?
Why wouldn't they?
Because in the parts of the country, of the world you were mentioning earlier, that have different views of women, they don't go to work.
In the parts of the world that person from the podcast was from, for the point I made, yeah, they didn't. But I don't live in those parts of the world. I think women should be free to work if they choose. I think it's very important that the family unit remains. I do believe that in my personal view, the most important and respectful thing a woman can do is become a mother. I think that having children is a beautiful thing. But obviously, if a woman wants to work and wants to have a career, especially now with paternity leave or maternity leave, and she can manage to do both, why wouldn't I want women to work? I don't know why anyone would ever assume I don't want women to work or think women can't work, because I said that I should keep them safe sometimes.
Good.
Okay.
No, but it's interesting because you have to look at this, Piers.
The problem is, like, people use the word feminism for a lot of things, and it's like one of these things that means something different for a lot of different people.
It's interesting how people extrapolate. Andrew said that he's responsible for a woman's safety, and he said that that gives him authority to make decisions for her safety, and that's been misconstrued, and he's a bad person. He believes that women are property. So, but now we believe that Andrew doesn't believe in love. Andrew doesn't believe women should work. Andrew, I don't know where all of that comes from.
Well, that's why I'm glad we've had a chance to discuss
completely. I believe women are sovereign individuals, and they can make any choice they so desire. I think that it's important that we remember that a man has a duty. I think I certainly in my relationship have a financial responsibility to provide for my woman. My woman would never have to work unless she wanted to, because I'm the kind of person who works hard enough that she wouldn't have to.
Should young men, though, all aspire to be like you?
Should young men aspire to work very hard, have no criminal record, become multimillionaires, protect and provide for the women close to them, be sovereign so they can
Don't get it twisted. Hey.
Stand up and have their own points of view in face of cancellation? Be able to not be mentally intimidated when they go on national TV and there's traps set up for them. Yeah, I believe that confident, strong men who stand up and protect and provide for women are a good thing for the world and a good force for the world. And I don't think that I put a magic spell on anybody. I think there's a whole...
Honestly, that's a really good answer. Like, this is straight up, like, yeah, this is a really, really, really good fucking answer. Like, him going into this monologue is the best thing that he's done in this entire interview. Yeah, I don't know if he practiced this in a mirror or some fucking shit, or this is just like, you know, the Holy Spirit taking form. But yeah, this is absolutely what he should say.
A whole bunch of men in the world who understands my value. And if men grow up to be like me, you're going to have a whole bunch of people with no criminal record, dedicated athletes, who protect and provide for the people close to them, are fantastic for the economy. And I'm certainly not the worst influence out here, Piers. You have Lil Nas twerking on the devil on music videos, which our children are digesting. You have drill.
I feel like twerking on the devil is not as bad as saying bad things about women, because there's not going to be a circumstance where some kid is going to find a devil and start twerking on him. Like, I think that you cannot make that argument. I see what he's saying. I think that might be a bad example, but I see what he's saying. What he's saying is that there are a lot of instances, and let's be fair, right? He used a bad example, but he is making a good point. How is it that something like what Andrew Tate is saying is somehow a bad thing, but we can have, you know, different music on the radio that is promoting and glorifying violence and crime? How are these two things congruent? Yeah, I think that this is very much a double standard to a degree. Music isn't taken literally. I mean, I think it kind of in a way is, because it's like you're talking about, like, I don't know, it depends on like what songs you're talking about and who the artist is, etc. But I think that a lot of music does glorify alcohol usage, drug usage, crime, and often violence. I think this absolutely happens. Are we going to pretend like it doesn't happen? It clearly does. And I think that you can't have a conversation of removing things that are harmful to society until you address the other things that are also harmful to society.
Is singing about stabbing people to death in the middle of a knife crime epidemic. You have rabid psychopaths on whether the right or the left announcing violence on the other side. You have all these insanities in the world. And because I sit here and say, yeah, perhaps. Now you've laid it out and it offended you, I understand.
I didn't say it offended
Okay,
me.
cool.
I just read you the things.
You read things that you said they could be offensive and some people are offended.
Well, some people definitely were offended.
Absolutely. That's fine.
And honestly, I think some of the things you said were genuinely offensive and misogynist.
Okay, so they offended you.
Like
I said earlier, so they offended you,
No,
which is fine. I said they offended you, you interrupted me, and now you're saying they offended you, which is fine. But the point I'm trying to make is this. I'm not the devil. There are certainly worse people than me, and
I don't disagree
and they exist.
with
And I'm saying that my core tenets for the people who don't understand me are self-accountability, so I'm accountable for everything I've ever said. My core tenets are responsibility, so I'm responsible for everything I've said. My core tenets are traditional masculinity to a degree, which involves protecting and providing for women. And I'll make another point here that's that needs to be said.
This is dangerous. It's like this reminds me of Joe Biden whenever he says and another thing in a speech. It's like, oh fuck. Oh fuck, here we go. You never know what it's gonna be after that. Yeah, I've got something else to say. Here we go.
The number of women who have stood up and stuck up for me is ignored. Thousands of women are making videos saying, I've met Andrew Tate, he's such a nice guy. I wish I had a man like Andrew Tate who felt responsible to protect and provide for
Very true. There are a lot of women who like that. Absolutely. Totally fucking true.
For me. You know what? I do belong to my husband. That's why I married him and I love him. We ignore the thousands of women who stood up and stood by me and said everything I said is true. And we're taking a very vocal minority who have taken the things I've said and are pretending to be absolutely and utterly devastated by them for some reason.
All right. Time out.
Sure.
You've had a good run there.
Sure.
An inquest this week found that a 14-year-old girl, Molly Russell, died from an act of self-harm while suffering from depression and the negative effects of online content. The coroner said she was exposed to material.
So this is the other part that we had seen. We've seen this part before. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, subject change. Well, yeah, I mean, that's fine.
That may have influenced her in a negative way, and in addition, what started as depression had become a much more serious depressive illness, and she very sadly took her life.
That's absolutely disgusting.
Right. Her father.
It's terrible.
Her father's campaign for better protections against potentially dangerous social media algorithms. Right. It says that the particularly graphic content she saw romanticized acts of self-harm, normalized her condition, and focused on a limited and irrational view without any counterbalance of normality. First of all, what is your response to that? Nothing to do with you.
Well, it's obvious that social media provides algorithms that create radicalization from both sides. Whether you're getting fed Andrew Tate, like anti-women stuff, or whether you're getting fed, cut yourself for, whichever popular Minecrafter it is this week.
It's the first thing, it is nothing to do with me. The fact that a 14-year-old girl took her life is truly sad. The world we live in today is... The fact that something like that happened is almost mind-blowing to me. That's truly sad. I actually feel sad inside to see something like that. This fact that they just said it's romanticizing the gory element. I don't know what she was watching, some kind of suicide.
Oh, she's probably watching something like, I mean, I don't know this, right? But romanticizing the gory element, like, can we all agree that we've even seen videos on this before about how there are TikTok trends that are effectively self-harm? Yes? Okay. Yeah, there we fucking go. So that's an instance of that happening. I think that Andrew Tate is completely, like, he's on the other side of the world with this kind of stuff. Like, he has nothing to do with it.
Videos thing. I don't know where these things are created.
Do you think the tech companies should be much tougher about stuff like this?
I don't know what kind of things she watched, obviously. I have to be a professional here. I think that the tech companies need to do their best to protect people, I guess.
I think that they are responsible for it to an extent. I think that whenever you have, the thing is, you can't just build something and then walk away from it and say, oh, well, it's not our responsibility anymore. This is what I said with TikTok, right? Is that if TikTok literally cannot control underage girls going on TikTok and dancing for money, they need to turn off the ability to live stream. Period. Like, either you control this or the government should come in and shut that the fuck down. Because it is completely fucking unfair. It is wrong that they should be able to profit off of this and be able to do this whenever it's causing harm to so many people. I am of the mindset that if there is some sort of service or utility or something like that that a company is providing, and that service or utility or object is harmful to the population on a large scale, that it should not be allowed. I think that, there's no reason for something like that to exist. That censorship, though. Do you want the internet censored everywhere? Isn't it just social media? Yeah, I do want underage girls dancing for money censored, yes. I absolutely believe in censorship in a lot of regards, like censorship of personal information, censorship of real-life threats, censorship of underage sexual content. Those are all things that I 100% agree on censorship for. Who doesn't agree with that? Are you fucking insane? Absolutely.
Agree, but it's a slippery slope, isn't it? And then they use this slippery slope to silence some people and to
right. And I think it's a really fine line, and it's a complicated line.
It is very.
I was interested in when you did an interview with the Times, Hugo.
It is. I think that it is a fine line, but do you guys think that it's a fair line to draw that if you are breaking the law on social media or you are using social media to break the law, that is the line? Because to me, I think if you use that as the line, you would cover about 95% of circumstances where I think censorship is fair.
He's a very good journalist. We did a big interview with him, and it was interesting to me, his conclusion, because he kind of concluded that although he found a lot of the things he said awful and offensive, and he didn't like them, and he didn't want to be that kind of person that would say those kind of things, nor could he actually work out exactly what you'd done, which deserved mass wipeout by all the tech firms. I thought it was an interesting conclusion. I don't know the answer to that, other than the reason I mentioned the Molly Russell case, not because that has anything to do with you at all, and I reiterate that.
Thank you.
I simply ask you this. What has come clear to me in the interview is that a lot of things you say you wouldn't say now that you've said before.
But I'd say them differently, perhaps.
Yeah, right. So to me, that's an acceptance. Not just that you want to get back on platforms, because maybe that was one of the reasons you were no platform, but that you've recognised and understood the potential harm to the wrong kind of impressionable mind by some of the things you've said. Would that be fair?
I think that's 80% fair. I recognize and understand that with massive fame, you have to be more careful about being misconstrued. Like I said earlier, 1% of people misunderstanding you doesn't matter with a small audience. It matters with a very large audience. With power comes responsibility. I still believe the things I say. I do not want to be a negative force for the world. I also understand that I am a man who's lived a very difficult, nuanced life, and I am capable of making nuanced points that may be misunderstood by teenagers. However, that can be said about anybody and everything. Every opinion online can be misunderstood by children. Trying to protect children from the internet is a very interesting subject in and of itself, because I would argue that 80% of the content on the internet can be negative or detrimental to a young mind that doesn't understand the world.
Yeah.
I'd argue that
that's true. Yep.
All of it. We just talked about music videos and dancing on the devil and, all this stuff. All this stuff is dangerous.
By the way, I think you make a very good point on that. So, a lot of these rap stars, the lyrics, the videos, I think far exceed anything that you've been accused of doing.
Completely.
Because in a lot of cases, some of them promote non-consensual activity with people, right? And I just think that crosses a line.
Look
You
at
have,
that.
as far as I've seen, you haven't crossed that line.
No, I haven't, and this is the thing, and I've been vilified not because of the things I say, because much more extremist content already exists on the internet. I think the reason I've been attacked and vilified is because of the popularity, because I became so massively famous.
Well, I think that makes sense, right? Obviously, you know, if you're the person who's got the loudest voice, everybody's going to be talking and complaining about you. Yeah, I mean that's just the way it goes.
Because of what I was actually saying. So as a professional, I analyze that and I understand that, okay, I'm massively famous now and certain things have been taken out of context. However, I still do believe I'm a force for good in the world. And I'm not going to sit here
Have
and
you
say,
changed, though?
It's not about changing.
Well, it is. We're all involved in an evolution. How old are you now?
I'm 36.
36, right? I bet you're a different person to what you were when you were 26.
Oh, that's
and
absolutely,
16,
that's
right?
absolutely a fact.
So we all change.
Yeah.
And Mike, you keep talking about being a good person.
Yeah.
I think if you're honest with yourself,
Yeah.
that you can see why people found a lot of the stuff you've said problematic and misogynist. And I think you've recognised you wouldn't express yourself in that way again because you've understood that it's caused a lot of harm. And that's really what I wanted to get to today, was an acknowledgement by you that these things clearly were said in the wrong way, created the wrong impression if you didn't mean them the way you intended them, and can therefore have a malevolent influence when you have a huge following.
Yeah, when you have a huge following, you certainly have to be a lot more careful about how you get certain points across. That's absolutely a fact.
Yeah, sure.
Andrew, I appreciate you coming all the way from Romania.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting conversation, and I thank you for having it.
Cheers, friend.
Well, that's it from me. Whatever you're up to, keep it uncensored. Good night.
All right. Holy shit, we actually did the whole thing. Oh my god, I can't believe it's actually over. This has been a long fucking video, but I'm gonna be honest. I think that the interview in general,
By the way,
painted Andrew Tate a lot better than what the preview was. I will absolutely say that. I think that the preview definitely drew correlations and causes that really kind of weren't there. Overall, I think that Andrew Tate was totally fucking wrong with a lot of the things, especially said on depression, etc. I think that he tried to change language too often at the beginning of the interview. It was annoying, but I think that overall he didn't really come out looking that bad. Yeah, I would say Piers Morgan did try some of these like weird tactics, like the whole Alex Jones arc was kind of weird. Like it felt weirdly personal. And I think that for Piers Morgan, it is personal. That's why it felt personal. It's because it was. But overall, yeah, I mean, Tate overall confirmed. I mean, like, I think that there were some things that he said that looked okay and pretty good. Things that he said that didn't, etc. I think that there's nobody comes out of this looking great. Nobody comes out of it looking awful, I would say. I think that this is just you know, it's just pretty much furthering what people already think. What do you guys think? I think Tate has bad takes, but does it need full-scale cancellation? Well, I mean, like, let me finish the rest of the stuff about this fucking video first, right? And I think it's fair to say he looks somewhat better from this. Yes, I think that it's 100% fair to say that after watching the entire interview, he looks substantially better than how he looked whenever we only watched the 5-minute or 6-minute segment. Like, the 5-minute or 6-minute segment was not an indicator, really, of the overall outcome of the show. I think, what do you guys think about that? Give it a fair view with all the vote. Yeah, I try to understand what somebody is saying and listen to them, because if you don't do that, then, I mean, what the fuck? Tate was right about some arguments, but he was totally wrong about depression, same as Piers. Yeah, exactly. I think that like, it was annoying at the beginning with, like, him trying to, like, reword property and like, redefine it. That was kind of annoying. But I think at the end of the day, you know, like, he did say, in my opinion, the right thing. And so it's just about whether he's going to continue saying that or not. I think that's the main instance of it. Piers has always been hot around Sandy Hook because he still gets shit to this day from some of the people at his he had on shows when it happened. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's also he's fucking mad he doesn't like Alex Jones either. Let's see here. Let me make sure that I read all of these. I know there's a lot of comments. I want to make sure that I get as many of them as I can. Points made most sense. There are rights and wrongs on both sides. Yeah, I would say that's in general what the case is. Yeah, I would agree with that. Tate completely contradicted his videos. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I think a lot of people would feel that way about, too. Yeah, for sure. He was totally wrong. I don't think he was totally wrong with depression. He just refused to concede there being clinical depression. I think he was right about everything else related to it. Yeah, but I feel like that's a really big part of it, right? I think that Piers and Andrew Tate both, Piers Morgan and Andrew Tate both agreed that you can work your way out of depression partially on your own. And there are lots of instances of being depressed that you can work your way out of, for sure. The most frustrating thing about Andrew Tate is that he makes sense a lot considering some of his past takes. Yeah, I think some of this stuff did make sense for sure. In that interview, Tate would often make some outlandish initial statement, then walk it back to a reasonable take when confronted. Interesting. Yeah, I think that he's always been a little bit of a, shock jock, you could say. My opinion, Andrew Tate, ocean man, okay. For being frank, people hate Alex Jones for money reasons. The average college-educated working person earned $2 million their whole life, and the top G, etc., behave how they want, and they're set on 50+ million. Yeah, I do think that's true. That's true with streamers and other people too as well. Just a second. Okay. All right. And what's this here? Saying depression isn't real is like saying obesity isn't real. It's a denial of reality. Well, what I was really trying to get at is that there are numerous other mental conditions that I think everybody, including Andrew Tate, would acknowledge are real. Why is depression the only one that is uniquely not real? I find that to be very, very inconsistent whenever you think about it. Everyone knows that going to the gym, taking care of yourself is going to be a good thing overall. Yeah, but I think that the more positive forces in society and culture that emphasize that and promote that, I think that'll be a good thing in general. Defining mental illness is iffy in general. Yeah, it is. I mean, again, I'm not a doctor. I've said many times. Problem with Tate's takes is that he associates normal life with a dystopian world where crime is rampant and you'd get life or death threats every other day. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't live in necessarily the safest part of Austin. I remember, like, whenever Izzy would come visit, the people that would, like, she'd take an Uber over, right? And well, she's going to stay the night or something, right? And, she'd take an Uber over, and they'd always ask her, they're like, why are you going there? What's a nice girl like you going there? What are you doing going to that place? So yeah, it's it's not necessarily the safest area here, but you know, I feel like nothing like that's ever happened to me. I mean, I'm sure sometimes it does happen to people, but you know, I've been lucky enough to not have anything bad happen. As someone who used to think depression wasn't real and then went through some courage depression, almost ruined my life a few years ago, don't blame anyone for not understanding, hasn't gone through it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think that some people that don't understand it, it's like a method of coping with the idea that you could not be in control of the way that you feel. And I think that that's like a kind of a weird thing to imagine, that like something like this could just happen to you and just completely take your accountability and control away from yourself. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons why people would try to, I guess you could say, deny depression. Yeah, I mean, I do hope that, like, I mean, do you guys think that I was fair in this, do you guys think I was fair in this interview with my commentary? I think this was, I think I was pretty fucking fair. I do. I think I was pretty fucking fair with all this stuff.